Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC 309, Jones versus Miocic. Producer Jared is on the sticks. Cody Safdie is on the line, and we've got a deal for you over at coolbet.com. Obviously, all of our episodes, title sponsor, coolbet.com. Head on over there. Use promo code DOGORPASS. Get a match up to $200 on your first deposit. So it's a 3x rollover after that, and then your bonus expires after 90 days. So easy math, Cody. I'll explain it to you. Deposit $200, get an extra $200, bet $600 worth of bets, and you are free to withdraw your money. It's a pretty easy rollover. Like a lot of books do like 30 or like 20, 10x, 20x, sometimes 40x. So 3x is basically nothing. They just don't want you depositing and being like, oh, free money without ever making a bet.
Yeah, well, last week was the first episode under Cool Bet, and it went off to a hot start. We hit some tickets, so hopefully we can make this one, which is a pay-per-view and a bona fide 13-fight pay-per-view with some big names on it. Yeah, now let's go hit some bigger tickets. And, of course, if you're new to the show, then, yeah, Cool Bet's got you covered with a sweet little promo.
Yep. In the description, if you want to sign up, info is all below in the description there. All right, we got obviously Jon Jones taking on Stipe Miocic, main event fight that we've been waiting for what feels like an eternity in the world of MMA. Jon Jones a minus 714 favorite. Stipe can be had for plus 500 at coolbet.com. Stipe is like almost 43 at this point. It was starting to look like the writing on the wall was, the durability was starting to leave him. Maybe he's a little bit slower, everything like that. Now he hasn't fought for 3.5 years. I know Jones hasn't fought. He's fought once in the last like 3.5 years. Both of these guys have kind of held up the heavyweight division, but I don't know. I feel like Jones, the one thing that he's got going for him is like that chin. The chin has always been cast iron. They changed the gloves back to the old gloves. If that's going to favor anybody, I think it's Jones. One, because he likes to poke people in the eye. And two, because maybe he doesn't have the biggest pop in his hands. Most of his power comes from like his kicks and his knees typically. But his durability was world-class, elite, maybe greatest of all time with the old gloves his entire career. Now it's a heavyweight fight, minus 714, but I haven't seen Stipe in 3.5 years at this point, Cody. Jones will be the pick, but I'm just not in the business of betting minus 714 favorites. I mean, it'll be on like degenerate parlays and stuff. And I'd love to say I'm like really confident about a certain prop, but Jones can kind of do it anyway. And like, I wouldn't be shocked to see these guys come out here for it to be a little bit more slow paced, to look a little bit sluggish, and for the fight to go to decisions. So over 2.5 may be of interest, but yeah, Stipe's question marks are just so pronounced that at this point in the week, at least, probably no action on the main event for me. What about you?
Yeah, it's a total freak show fight. It's a freak show fight that we're all here to watch. But at the end of the day, you've got a guy in Jon Jones that's already announced that it's his retirement fight, which is never good. Versus a guy in Stipe Miocic who we all thought was already retired. He hasn't fought in 3 years. So it's two guys that are essentially retired in a farewell bout taking place at heavyweight. You've got Jon Jones. Some people call him the greatest of all time. Steroid accusations aside, people still call him the greatest of all time. Debatable, though. Like, here's his thing, is that he fought in the worst division of all time. It was hot in the early 2000s when it had guys like Rampage Jackson and Shogun and Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. And at one point, it was Machida. It was a premier division. By the time Jones came in, all those guys were aged. All those guys were faded out. He's the young lion against these aged guys. And then eventually, there's nobody left for him to fight. He's in a competitive fight with Alexander Gustafsson. He went the distance with Oban St. Preux. He went the distance with Anthony Smith. He won a split decision over Thiago Santos, who had blown out both of his knees in the fight. He arguably loses to Dominic Reyes. Yeah, the guy's got a legendary win streak and he always does find a way to win, but a lot of these fights are pretty well close against guys that aren't very good. So I've already made the argument many times every time Jon Jones fights, he has this great legacy and you can't take that away from him. But again, when you give him minus 700 status simply because he's technically undefeated, technically because he's, the great Jon Jones and he finds these ways to win. Yeah, there's been a bunch of these fights with lesser guys than Stipe Miocic that have been competitive, and a lot of them do go the distance. He moves up to heavyweight in a lot of ways. It's a lot like when George St. Pierre decided to jump up to middleweight against Michael Bisping, right? They said, okay, we'll allow you to do this. You can fight Michael Bisping in this essentially freak show fight, but will you fight the number one contender after that? Yeah, of course I will. Beats Michael Bisping in a very favorable matchup. And then it's like, okay, great. Would you fight Robert Whittaker? No. Would you fight Ronaldo Jacare Souza? No. Would you fight Yoel Romero? No. George decides to retire again. That's what Jon's doing. He knew Cyril Gane's a Muay Thai guy with no grappling, so he very selectively moves up to heavyweight and beats the most favorable matchup for him. It's a big name guy with an interim title. I can win. They offer him 2, 3, and 4. He turns them all down. But now we got Stipe Miocic, who's essentially retired. He hasn't fought in 3 years. The UFC lures him back. Do you want to fight Alexander Volkov? Hell no. You want to fight Sergey Pavlovich? Not a chance. Would you fight Curtis Blades? Quite honestly, no. Do you want $3 million to fight Jon Jones? Yeah, of course. The biggest name guy, a light heavyweight who doesn't really pose a whole lot of knockout threat in a fight that I'm going to get paid more than all the other fights. Yeah, so that's why they're drawing it back in. And if it was a prime Stipe, if it was a version of Stipe that you could really feel comfortable with, one has to wonder, yeah, you're going to make this a competitive fight. This version of Stipe, I can only really judge it on that last fight against Francis Ngannou. And as opposed to the first time he fought Francis, or the times that he was fighting Daniel Cormier, he just looked so slow and uncomfortable. He had a really hard time gauging that distance against Francis. The first round, he takes an absolute mauling, but this is where you might be able to tire Francis, okay? He threw everything he had in the first. Second round, Stipe is actually starting the round off not too bad. Francis is looking a little gun shy, and his inability to gauge the distance and get comfortable in that fight causes him to essentially just rush in, and Francis just melts him over. Jones, yeah, legendary durability, but his other thing that he's really great at is that distance management. It's hard to find angles on this guy. It's hard to get inside. You got a 43-year-old Stipe. He's been running a fire hall in Ohio. He's eating pasta for dinner every night. I would think that Jones has got more than enough left in the tank to just pinpoint this guy and win a 49-46 type decision. Maybe he wins every single round. Maybe he's able to take him down and maul him with some classic elbows or grab a rear naked choke or something. But more than likely, this thing's going to bank some rounds and go the distance. So I got Jones. I go Jones by decision, the over 2.5. But again, this is a fun fight, but it's not the crown jewel on this card. There's some really good fights on this card from guys that you're going to be seeing for a long time to come. This is kind of just a farewell. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for doing everything that both of you guys have done for the organization. We're going to pay you a boatload of money, make it the marquee fight on a big pay-per-view event, get you guys both paid, and then they'll sail off into the sunset. So it's not the best guys available. It's just two of the biggest names available.
100%. And then the winner, it sounds pretty clear that the winner has no intentions of fighting Tom Aspinall for the actual UFC title. Like it sounds like they're both. I mean, if Stipe wins, like, does he even fight ever again? Like, who would he fight? And then Jones, it seems like Jones is like only interested in Pereira, like in a legacy money fight type of situation. They have no interest in like actually fighting like heavyweights and, staking their claim at the top of the current division. It is what it is.
Jones makes sense with Pereira simply because, again, stylistically, Jon Jones is not just going to take down Alex Pereira. That Jon Jones couldn't find a way to beat Alex Pereira. But again, because that is a huge fight. This is a good fight. That would be a huge fight. Now Jones can go out there and try to command what he tried against Francis. He was down to fight Francis Ngannou, but he made it clear, I want 10 million. And when Francis came back with, I also want 10 million, they realized the pay-per-view points weren't going to add up. And Francis ended up being a headache for them, and they released him. In this situation, if he says, yeah, I'll fight Alex Pereira, it's going to be the same thing. He's going to ask for $10 million, but I think you can justify it. And Poatan, he's more of these, I already have money. I like the challenge. And it's like, all right. We got ourselves a real super fight. But yeah, maybe one more fight for Jon Jones after this is Stipe, if you want, it'd be like this great Rocky Balboa story. He just leaves the fire hall, hasn't fought in 3 years, puts down the plate of spaghetti, gets in there, and becomes the first guy to actually beat Jon Jones. Come on, come on. Don't fight again and get your brains beaten out for a payday. He's already comfortable. His family's comfortable. His grandkids are going to be comfortable. But that would be a great storybook ending for him. Jones might chase greatness a little bit more just because there's a huge payday ahead of him, maybe a couple more ahead of him. And Jones, similar to a Floyd Mayweather, similar to those guys, it's like you got to itch, and I've never been beaten, so it's hard to lie in bed at night and be like, "Hey, man, I retired because I wasn't as good as I used to be. I retired because I wasn't the best anymore." As long as you're still winning, you're gonna have that itch. So maybe you see him again, but again, what I'm saying is this one's name value more than two of the guys at the top of their game. They're both faded. Jones has probably still got something left in the tank. Stipe a lot less, so the pick is Jones.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the put down the plate at spaghetti. I saw the embedded as well, and like it made me remember, like just kind of remember Stipe and like how like down there, like obviously we met him at like Fight Network, and like the guy was just so. This was like at the peak of Stipe. He's got the belt with him, everything like that, and he was just like the most like down to earth, like nice dude ever. And yeah, just hearing him talk about how his wife makes the best pasta sauce was just like, I love it. How can you not like this guy? All right, move to the co-main event. We got Charles Oliveira taking on Michael Chandler, minus 263 for Do Bronx, plus 215 for Chandler. Who you got?
Yeah, I got Chucky Olives. Listen, fan favorite. We all love the guy. Just when you're betting him at a 2-to-1 price tag, sounds like it should go in our favor, and it should go in our favor, but it might be a beating in the first round. And that's exactly what Charles had to do the first time he fought Chandler. He took some serious damage in that first round, got outstruck nearly 3-1. And then in the second round, that's when you can capitalize on Michael Chandler. This guy's about as athletic as a white boy as you're going to find. Like everything he does is fast twitch muscle, bang, bang, bang. 0 to 60, and it takes a toll on your gas tank. Now he's starting to get a little bit older. He hasn't fought in a little while. On one hand, it's good that he's taken some time off because when he does fight, it is an absolute train wreck every single time. So the time off maybe helps him. But the other thing is that maybe his reflexes are starting to slow down a little bit. Maybe that speed's starting to slow down a little bit. Maybe some of these injuries that you get in training are starting to compound, and he's just not quite the same. And against Charles Oliveira, when you go 0 to 60, he meets you in the middle. He takes your best shots. If you do not put him down, the guy's a zombie. He quite literally fights better in all the fights where he gets dropped. You know, Dustin Poirier puts the guy down. Chandler outstrikes him 3-1 in the first round. Arman Sarukian early in that fight. The longer you let this guy hang around, he is going to either find your chin or find your neck. He's absolute dynamite. My opinion here is that Chandler's rhythm and timing might be a little bit off. I mean, it's hard to say he waited around for Conor McGregor too long, but in senses that we're talking about John Jones only wanting to fight a specific guy. Michael Chandler thought, I'm just going to wait around and fight this one specific guy. Conor McGregor is a fight that makes sense for me because similar to taking that big prize money fight, it's the biggest payday you're going to get. Stylistically, you don't mind the fight. So he just waits around, he waits around, he waits around. Now you're jumping into the fray with a guy that not only beat you once already, but absolutely took you out early in the second round. And then beyond that, has been active and has been fighting the best guys in the division. So yeah, maybe live bet if Chandler has a good first round, which I do anticipate that he will. And then you're anticipating again that Charles Oliveira is going to continue getting better and better, that you might be able to get a better price after the early going. But yeah, in my mind, I feel like he takes that early storm, is able to wither it, come back, either find the neck, more than likely just hurt him, get him up against the cage, land some elbows, land some knees, cause him to take a bad shot. Wayne takes the bad shot, spin around to the back, rear naked choke. If not, land the knee to the face, put him down. I got all the respect in the world for Michael Chandler, but it takes a one tough dude to go out there and just blow through Charles Oliveira. And he's tried once already and didn't get to do it. Now a few years removed from that, a few fights removed from that, I can't get behind it. The last thing I want to bring up is with Michael Chandler. Again, this guy's absolutely, he's got the goods. He can wrestle. He was a former D1 collegiate guy out of Missouri. He's got the power. He's got a lot of, veteran savviness. He's fought 5 rounds before. He's done all that. He's been there. He's done that. But look at this streak, right? So he loses to Dustin Poirier in his last fight, choked out, right? 3 fights back against Justin Gaethje, took an absolute mauling in that fight. And then the fight prior to that against Charles Oliveira, left hook knockout. The one win, because he's 1-3, the one win's over Tony Ferguson, where everybody remembers it because he comes out and just jungle kicks Ferguson in the face and knocks him out. But Ferguson is actually looking quite competitive in that fight until he knocks him out. So Charles, man, if again, it's going to be the same thing. If you do not front kick this man in the face and put him down, if you do not land some crazy overhand right in the early going, if you do not land a takedown and just smash him before he gets a chance to, throw up a couple submission attempts, if you do not take him out in the first under 1.5, yeah, it's going to be Chucky O all day long. So I got Oliveira inside the distance, likely by submission, but again, I can see the knockout.
Yeah, it's not even that Chandler has, been off for 2 years waiting for that McGregor fight, hoping, praying that it would happen. Obviously, he was on the Ultimate Fighter and all of that, and, it was supposed to happen. Connor's had injuries. Connor's delayed them. The worst part about all of it is that the guy was 36 when that started. Now he's 38. It's like, how many fights did he have left? Especially with his style of action, so much, everyone loves watching Michael Chandler fights, particularly his fights in the UFC. It's just like all action. Somebody's, if somebody doesn't die, then it's like a fight of the year, fight of the century type of performance. Like, it's all action all the time, nothing but respect. But it sucks that, we lost 2 years of this guy's fights and, with his style of fighting. Is he going to be able to go into 40? His body would probably tell you that, the guy would be capable of going until he's 40. But, yeah, it's just kind of a sad situation. Hopefully, financially, they hooked him up in some way, shape, or form. Or maybe down the line, he gets that McGregor fight. Because I feel bad for the guy. Just getting kind of jerked around constantly. I'm with you, though. We've obviously seen the fight before. It's super, super risky. Minus 263. You may have your butt clinched, at any point in the fight. It doesn't even necessarily have to be round one. Obviously, that's when Chandler is the most dangerous. But, yeah, it's when it's so dangerous, minus 263 seems a little bit scary. The props are pretty well priced as far as I can kind of tell. Then he add in, I was thinking, maybe it would be, I was thinking submission, and that news about the gloves drop, and I'm like, well, that kind of makes me less inclined to, be all in on the submissions. So, Charles by finish, Charles inside the distance, which isn't going to be very generous, but it is what it is. Probably a better live play. Make sure he doesn't get his head knocked off, as you said. Bo Nickal taking on Paul Craig, minus 1250, biggest favorite, at least currently. Onama later on could potentially get into this realm, but at minus 1250, biggest favorite on the card. Paul Craig, plus 775. We got one of the best collegiate wrestlers of all time, one of the best prospects, I suppose, of all time, taking on Paul Craig, who is a seasoned veteran. And frankly, it's I was watching Embedded there, and at 185, the guy, he actually had, he's pretty jacked at this point. He's very, very he looks physically strong, very muscular, everything like that. There's no doubt in my mind that this is the better weight class for him. But you look at some of his fights, and you go it's a submission guy. Brendan Allen was able to submit him on the mat. His chin has always been a question mark. He's a bit of a meme king. When he has got his, the win over Ankalaev, getting absolutely dominated the entire fight until he throws up a triangle. Bo Nickal's got the right crew of people around him that, he's going to be prepared for, I think, everything that gets thrown his way. The way that we have to kind of look at this fight is, how do you bet it from a prop perspective? Obviously, there's, betting the money line minus 1250. That's not adding much to any sort of profit that you're trying to put together. There's KO or there's submission. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get the submission here. Just positionally aware, positional dominance. A lot of people are going to think the KO, but I don't think he's going to be that scared to go to the ground. Maybe he is a little bit scared early, but I don't know. I think when you're this good of a wrestler, you can kind of take this fight wherever you want. So, haven't bet it, but Bo Nickal sub is my official pick. What about you?
Yeah, I think Bo Nickal gets it done however he wants, and he's minus 1200 for a reason. Bo Nickal, obviously, he's known for his collegiate wrestling background, and we all consider him perhaps the best wrestler of the division. So you've got the best wrestler of the division taking on what I would quite honestly consider to be the worst wrestler of the division. Paul Craig's takedowns are god awful. He'd be rocking a 20% takedown accuracy in the UFC. But beyond that, he's a guard puller. Like, he might shoot on a single leg takedown only to get deep enough to try to drop on an ankle. He's trying to pull you on top of him and then throw up arm bars and triangles. Like, it's something that used to work back in the day. Can't say it works anymore. Now, in his case, this dude did pull it off against Ankalaev. Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago. And he did submit Jamal Hill. Yeah, 3, 4 years ago. But it's light heavyweight. Light heavyweight's just so bad that there aren't any grapplers. Jamal Hill is a blue belt at the time. Ankalaev, it's his UFC debut or like his second fight in the UFC. Like, he's still very green in his own ways. A Sambo guy from Russia. Yeah, he catches some guys that are inexperienced. Since he's dropped down to 185, he's actually only 1-2. You know, now all of a sudden, that speed advantage that he had over the 205ers, it's gone. These middleweights are way faster than him. And, you know, his suspect chin at 205, yeah, it's still suspect at 185 pounds. His weak wrestling at 205 is still weak at 185 pounds. It's just his ability to snatch up the submission on these people, it's becoming less and less. His last 2 fights in particular, as you mentioned, Brendan Allen takes him down, out-grapples him, chokes him out. But Kale Barahau's he was getting known as a bit of a decision guy. You know, he's mostly taking guys down and neutralizing them. And he probably could have easily taken down Paul Craig. And I think he's got good enough grappling that he could have out-grappled Paul Craig. But instead, he chooses the path of least resistance. Stay standing. This man can't take me down. He bull rushes in through the pocket. He throws wild strikes. I'm just going to time him with one. And a precise guy like Barahau is going to find his opening, which he does, and he knocks him out. When you look at Paul Craig's been knocked out in the UFC by Tyson Pedro in the first round, Khalil Roundtree in the first round, Lonzo Menefield in the first round, and knocked out Johnny Walker in the first round, and then Barahau knocks him out in round 2. So 4 first-round knockout losses and now a second-round knockout loss. He's a chinny guy. He doesn't wear damage particularly well. He's a one-trick pony, and that trick just hasn't really been being utilized lately. Bo Nickal's got some decent boxing. He's a guy that obviously is a wrestler at heart, but at the same time, he's shown us glimpses of it. The Val Woodburn fight, he just knocks him out in 38 seconds. As soon as Woodburn steps in, Bo cold cocks him, puts him away. In this spot, I think he could take down Paul Craig, land some ground and pound, separate, let Paul Craig back up. Paul's going to be shooting these desperation takedowns. You'll grab front headlocks. You'll soften him up with ground and pound. You let him back up. At some point, Paul Craig's tired of constantly shooting because it's exhausting. Bo, not tired, 1, because he's got wrestling fitness, 2, because these shots are coming from 6 feet out. He's going to see them coming. He's going to dig one underhook, shuck him off to the side, and wait for the next attempt, and then the next attempt. And then Paul Craig's going to curl over from exhaustion, and Bo Nickal's going to put him away. I can see what you're saying with submissions as well, because people will be thinking, how is Bo Nickal going to submit Paul Craig, who's got all these great submissions? And yeah, okay, Brandon Allen submitted him, but, you know, Brandon Allen's a top contender. Bo Nickal's still green. I watched Paul Craig on a grappling tournament, like, not live, it was on stream, but maybe like 3 weeks ago against some brown belt. And the dude subs him in like 48 seconds of the leg lock. Like, he's got good MMA jiu-jitsu. He's not some great jiu-jitsu wizard in the world of jiu-jitsu. He's got a couple great submission wins in MMA. Yeah, and this one over Bo Nickal would be legendary. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't see how he gets it done. So I'm personally leaning towards the knockout. I think Bo just cooks him with a shot as he gets tired and as he gets desperate and as he makes a bad move. He's either going to get ground and pounded from his back or he's going to walk into a right-hand counter. So knockout for me personally, kind of feeling the under 1.5. I know you and I both personally lost a bunch of money in Bo's last fight because we had the under against Cody Brunridge. But Brunridge is an actual collegiate wrestler that just clung on to him. Paul Craig's not going to be able to just cling on to him, let alone get a hold of him. He's not fast enough. He's slow, unathletic, flat-footed. He needs to rely on taking on these bigger, also slow, flat-footed, unathletic guys and getting a hold of them. At middleweight, it's just been too difficult for him so far. I know what you're saying, he's a huge guy, but being a huge guy makes you slow and plodding. And if you don't got a great chin, these faster guys are going to bust into the pocket, hit you over the top, and then shoot back out of range. And I just don't think Paul Craig's going to be able to take that damage. So I got Bo Nickal by knockout.
All right, we got Karine Silva taking on Viviane Araujo. Minus 263 for Karine Silva, plus 215 for Viviane. Who you got?
I mean, this one might be a bit of a trap because Karine Silva got the grappling advantage. I'm kind of sold on her grappling, and the way to beat, I would say, Viviane Araujo is put pressure on her, take her down, neutralize her. So seems like Karine Silva should do exactly that. One thing I do want to mention with Karine Silva is you look at a lot of these opponents that she's been able to take down, like Ketlin Souza, Marina Moroz, Ariana Lipski her last time out. When she takes you down, there's not a whole lot of room to get back up. Like, yeah, she's getting Darce choke, guillotine choke. Like, she gets a hold of your neck. That's it. But if you got two options, I can try to get back up and I may expose my neck and she's going to grab it. Or I can stay here and have no space and then you're not getting back up. You're losing. So don't think her striking's all that good. She could get out hustled. As far as her hands, she's a little bit short in the reach department. She's coming up short in a lot of these punches, but she just punches as an entry to get in on these takedowns. And once she gets these takedowns, she tends to have her way. Viviane Araujo, meanwhile, she's starting to get a lot older. I think she's 36, 37 years old. So 38, sorry. Yeah, 38 years old at a women's, lighter weight class division, 125 pounds. Yeah. At some point, it's going to start to catch up to her. But again, I look at Jennifer Maia, who's not known for her takedowns, taking her down twice. Amanda Hebus, who's a little bit undersized, taking her down twice. Andrea Lee was able to take her down. Montana De La Rosa was able to take her down. I don't think that her takedown defense is necessarily solid. She's an okay fighter all around. She's an absolute decision machine. Her last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fights have gone to decision. And all of them have been clear-cut unanimous. No splits, no contentious. She either beats you because she's able to stuff these takedowns, beat you in the first 2 rounds, gas in the third, but win the first 2, or you're able to keep it 1-1, then you'll beat her in the third, or take her down, keep it 1-1, beat her in the third. I feel like Karine Silva probably does that. Her cardio seems solid, her takedown game seems solid. I would think that she's able to just utilize that en route to a decision victory, if not snatching up the neck at some point. So I'll take Killer Karine, but bit of a deep price tag for me personally, and I'm not like super over the moon confident. So it'll probably be like mid-range confidence wise and mid-range on the tickets this week.
I will give Karine Silva a little bit of leeway, and the Ariane Lipsky fight last time out looks a little bit, supposed
Suspect
to be some sort
in hindsight now.
Yeah, because Jazz was able to take her down. Jazz was able to tire her out. Jazz was able to find the Darce choke and actually finish the job. And it's like we had seen Karine Silva out there for the entirety of the fight, mostly just sprawl and brawl. But they had spent a lot of time. There was heat going into that fight because they had trained together a whole bunch. So it's very, very possible that it's they had spent so much time together that it's Lipsky knew all of her tricks. Lipsky knew all of her little transitions and stuff like that. So maybe she was a little bit more prepared for what to expect, what not to expose herself to. At the end of the day, 5 takedowns and 7 minutes and 32 seconds of control time. You do that, you're gonna win a lot of fights.
I'll tell you what the difference is. I'll tell you what the difference is for me personally is that Jasmine Jasudavicius, you can't say she's the best striker in the division, the best wrestler in the division. You might be able to say she's got the best ground and pound in the division. Like Derek Lewis at heavyweight, not necessarily the best grappler, but when they're on top of you, it's a different ballgame. Jasmine, when she got on top, she absolutely mauled Lipsky to oblivion. That finally Lipsky was like, I'm tired of getting my face smashed in with these elbows, short shots, pound on you, getting move position, weigh on you, more short shots, more elbows in the face, relentless pace, on track to eclipse 100 significant strikes. She stuck her neck in a bad position because she wanted to weigh out. Karine is not huge on ground and pound because ground and pound forces space, and she's mostly just shut down jiu-jitsu, neutralizing you. If you eventually just get sick of it, make a mistake, she'll grab the neck. But in your case, yeah, Lipsky and her trained together. Maybe there was some familiarity, but beyond that, there just was no threat of big damage causing you to be like, I need to make a move here, or I'm not going to remember what happened the last month of my life. So Karine Silva's probably a better grappler than Jasudavicius, pure grappler. But when you add ground and pound, that's what makes a fight. And Jazz has just proven that she is absolutely vicious when she gets on top of you.
Yep. We're in New York. New York is a commission that, historically didn't allow MMA for the longest time. It was a whole big deal when they finally did allow it. All the fights used to take place in Jersey when they would brand it as being in New York. But maybe I'm wrong, but if memory serves correct, scoring has been definitely questionable. Scoring in MMA is questionable at the best of times. Then you factor in ground time, not many strikes getting thrown in. This could be a spot where I, get a little bit off the board and fish for a split decision prop. between the two of them. Because, yeah, like a lot of what you're saying, a lot of the reservations that you have about Karine Silva would lead towards a split decision happening here. Like Viviane, she hasn't really taken on a grappler to this level in pretty much all of her UFC fights. Like she hasn't taken on somebody with this level of submission skills, but she survived against, high level. Jennifer Maia is like a perennial like top 5. Sermonara, perennial top 5, top 10 opponent in this division. So she's been in there with some of the best, maybe not the best of the best, but some stalwarts of the division. So outside of getting caught in a sub, this fight could definitely be super, super competitive. Minus 263 kind of scares me off a little bit. All right, we got Mauricio Ruffy taking on James Llontop. Minus 909 for the fighting nerd. Ruffy. He's Brazilian, so we don't pronounce the R. But Ruffy, is that what we're going with, Cody?
No, because I used to ride a Huffy half-ton bike when I was a kid, so I'm gonna call him Ruffy.
Ruffy?
He's a ruffian.
Roofy?
It probably is.
He will knock you out. I'll tell you that much.
That he will.
This guy, I mean, his last fight, I was actually stunned by how he was just like dancing out there, just like style. I mean, Jamie Malarkey, definitely a bit of a question mark with his durability. More of like an Australian wrestler. I get all of that, but like, it wasn't competitive. It wasn't close. And like from the moment they started, he was just on him like he owed him rent. Got the first round finish, 442. Absolutely laid it on him. Was supposed to take on multiple different opponents, I believe, and both of them have dropped out. And then now he's taking on Llontop. I mean, it seems like this is what they like to do. This is why Bo Nickal's on this card. You have a big name like John Jones, and they like to show you who the next people, the people that you should watch out for in the coming years are going to be. And everything that you see out of Fighting Nerds right now, I mean, we're just our boy Prates last week. It's just like those guys just seem ready for the moment, and I think they're probably getting a lot harder rounds in at the gym on a day-to-day basis than they do when they step into the cage. When they step into the cage, it's easy. Ruffy by knockout is minus 200 at Cool Bet, so it's kind of been a little bit steamed there, but there's still like minus 135s, minus 150s out there. Seems like the play to me. What about you?
To be honest with you, I just got a bad gut feeling about this one. And it might not mean anything. I had a bad gut feeling about Cody Stamen and Blackshear. It didn't matter. Blackshear absolutely wrecked Cody Stamen. So, yeah, maybe it means nothing. Maybe just follow the trend and take the big favorite. But I can't quite figure out why he's a minus 900 favorite. I know what you're saying. The guy's styling out there. He beats Jamie Malarkey. It's a quality little victory. All of his wins are by knockout. That's his win condition. He's got 10 pro victories. Sorry, they're all inside the distance. He absolutely smashes his opponents to oblivion. His one career loss is also inside the distance. He got knocked out in the second round. So, yeah, he's out of Fighting Nerds, and they'll probably have a good game plan for him. But what he is at his heart is an all-action guy that's coming forward. He has been chin-checked before. He has been knocked out. If you don't take the heat that he's bringing at you, you're going to fold before him. When you look at most of the guys he's fought, they all have had knockout losses before. Raymond Magadaliev, he goes out and knocks out him for the first time in the third round. Lands 70 significant strikes deep into the third round before finishing him. Jamie Malarkey's got a history of getting knocked out. He knocks him out with like 15 seconds left in the first round, had landed 25 significant strikes. He's a power guy. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a huge volume guy, but I mean, he's definitely going to go out there and hit you and make you feel it every time he lands, whether it's his left, whether it's his right, whether it's his kicks, he's going to go for it. You've not seen him stretched into the third round. You've not seen him had to go deep. So one, his gas tank might not be the best. Two, like you're saying, it's in New York. So you got one guy that's going to be heavy punches, huge damage, more meaningful shots. The other guy might just actually outwork him a little bit. And if it's close going into the first, I feel like Llontop's going to be live here in the third. Why? Because Llontop is Peruvian, right? So that's going to serve him two good things here. One, Peru's at high altitude. Like the whole thing's high altitude. I'm not talking Machu Picchu, one of the highest places in the world. I'm talking the lowest point of altitude in Peru is still way higher than you're going to find anywhere else. So most of the guys that fight out there have really good gas tanks, and Llontop's no different. You look at him, he's a volume guy. He's capable of going out there and throwing down. On his fight with Malik Lewis on the Contender Series, he got taken down twice. As soon as he gave himself enough space to get back up, he was just gas on the pedal, foot on the pedal, the entire time. Scores 2 knockdowns, wins that fight. His last fight with Vyacheslav Borshev, right? He landed 93 significant strikes. That fight was a close striking battle the whole way through. We're talking about Ruffy being a very good striker. Borshev is an excellent striker. The key to beating Borshev, as you know, Paul Shaughnessy, is take the guy down. Llontop doesn't do that. Llontop fights him in the exact worst way to fight him, which is stand and trade with him the entire time. First round, both guys land 26 significant strikes. Second round, he got outstruck by Borshev 37-25. Third round, he comes on, outstrucks Borshev 42-33. Super close fight, split decision. I thought Llontop won. They gave it to Borshev. What can you do? You're not going to scream robbery on a fight that's close like that. But this guy's comfortable as a striker, has a deep gas tank, never been knocked out as a professional, has one TKO loss, and it's his very first amateur fight in 2015 when he was 15 years old. So the guy's got skin in the game. He's got cardio, he's got durability, and he's primarily a striker. If he can take Ruffy's shots in the first round or two, keep it competitive, hopefully not go down too, he's going to be live in the third round. And Ruffy, his one career loss is by knockout, so he's not Superman by no stretch. And you've not seen him fight into third rounds. So it's a hot New York crowd. It's a hot pay-per-view. Jon Jones is at the top. You're on the main card. People are going wild. You're bombing on this guy because everyone tells you you're the next big thing. And all 10 of your wins are by finish. So you go for the finish. If he goes for the finish and it does not materialize, he'll be vulnerable. This guy's a 2-1 favorite. I'm in. Minus 240. I'm in. Minus 310. I start to question a little bit, but yeah, he would be my pick. Minus 900. Like, I'm very clearly missing something, and I'll go back and look a few more times. But minus 900. Woof. I'm not. It's striker versus striker. One guy's durable and possibly has a perceived cardio advantage. You're in New York, which is a terrible commission to begin with, and it's power puncher versus volume. Again, volume, it's not like he's going to double him up per se, but Llontop be averaging 5.38 strikes landed per minute. Ruffy's at 4.88, so it's less than 1 strike differential. I get it, but Ruffy's a power punching guy, so he's going to be throwing everything into these shots, whereas Llontop, not as good as a striker, don't get me wrong, but he's not as good of a striker as Borshev. He just proved to be a little bit tougher, a little bit grittier. I thought he should have won that fight. He lost a split. If he can keep this fight tough and gritty and force a split, even if he loses, if you're holding on to a minus 900 ticket and this thing ends up being competitive, Paul, yeah, I'd be sweating it. And I don't like sweating minus 900. So for me, it's a bit of a pass. I could see a world where I put Llontop as a PRP pick, but I'm going to look at it a few more times before I go betting anything with my actual money.
I assure you, Cody, I am not holding any minus 900 tickets. I am holding minus 145 by knockout, minus 132 by knockout. That's how I. If this thing goes to decision, I lose. But it's like I didn't really want to get involved in a fight that was close and competitive, and there are enough question marks about Ruffy. Long term, or if a fight gets extended, that it's like, if I lose it that way, I lose it that way. Like, you know me, I'm not betting minus 900s really anywhere. And like you bring up good points. Like, does he win 85% of the time? Like, that's maybe he'll look like $1 million and that will actually be the case. But like, that's that money line is just so steep that it's tough to get involved in that.
You want to see 6-pack Saftik, that you're going to win 6 chewy bets, and then I'm going to eventually have to drink all 6 in the one episode, right? If I offered you a 6-1 bet right now, that it would be 6-pack Shaughnessy, that you've got Ruffy, yeah, you've got the favorite, but would you feel comfortable that you're certainly not going to have to down a 6-pack out of a child's boot on next week's episode? Like, I wouldn't feel great about it. It's not the kind of thing I would want to take action on that either. If I'm wrong, by the way, I'll offer you that. I'll do one single shot of beer if Ruffy wins. You're doing a full 6-pack if Ruffy loses. Would you like to take that?
No, not
Yeah, I know. It just doesn't feel
Because if it
good now,
goes to
does it? So how do you
decision,
bet it?
if we goes to decision and it's a kickboxing match and we're in New York, a commission that's like pretty inexperienced, I'm not going to feel good about the situation whatsoever.
And Ruffy's never been to decision in 11 fights.
Llontop has been durable and yeah, so he's been durable. He obviously went the distance against Borshevs, who's a good kickboxer in his own right. I don't think he's as powerful, and I don't think he's as like, flashy, has that ability to really put your lights out as Ruffy. But no, yeah, I don't really. I have no interest in the money line. I'm attacking this one from a prop perspective. Let's move on. We've got Marcus McGhee taking on Jonathan Martinez. McGhee, a minus 130 favorite. Oh, sorry. McGhee is a minus 143 favorite. Martinez can be had for plus 122. I was looking. I got a lot going on my. I got FightOdds.io on my. I've got Coolbet on my screen. I just got caught looking at fight odds for a second there when I read the fight out. What are your thoughts on this one, Cody?
Yeah, honestly, this is as lined as closely as, like you're saying, minus 130, minus 140, kind of in that range. I think it's going to be a close competitive fight. You can make a strong argument for both guys. You make a strong argument that this thing could go to decision. It could be close. It could be contentious. It's probably going to be striker versus striker. Marcus McGhee, I would think, has a wrestling advantage. He's out of the MMA lab in Arizona. I would like to see him shoot, but there's just something about this guy I can't quite put my finger on. But
Because he looks like he's old? Oh, you like him?
He looks like he's a... Oh, I love him, dude. I love him.
Oh,
He looks like he's a 475-year-old wizard that's been sent back in time and just knows something that the rest of us don't, man. But for a guy that's older, like, he has almost no pro fights. He has 10 pro fights, and yet he's 34 years old, and it looks like he's been around the block a few times. Natural athlete for sure. I mean, he's definitely in very good physical shape, moves very, very, very well for a guy, especially an older guy. And so far, it comes into the UFC against Journey Newson, takes it back, rear naked choke. Okay, well, he's out of the MMA lab. You know the guy can grapple. His fight with JP Buys, he just dog walks Buys and knocks him out. Now, JP Buys is super chinny, so it's just another easy victory. Then he draws Gaston Bolanos. Now, Gaston Bolanos was the only underdog I hit last week, certainly. But you and I were in full agreement that Gaston Bolanos is a good fighter. Really good Muay Thai. Not somebody you want to stand with. The path to victory against him is take him down. McGhee could have gone out there. He did actually take him down for a few minutes, but he just decided to stand with him.
Walk him down.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my God. He train wrecked him. Just continuous pressure, continuous front foot. No space for you to breathe. He's not worried about these spinning back elbows. He's not worried about anything coming back from Bolanos. Bolanos obviously doesn't have the offensive grappling to keep him off him by shooting a takedown. So you're forced to just backpedal. And as a result, even though on paper, Marcus McGhee isn't nowhere near the level of striker of Gaston the Dream Killer Bolanos, he just wrecks him. I wanted them to book him again next week because he took absolutely no damage. He's a little bit older, so I'd like to see him stay active. I don't want him to be my next Rowney Barcelos. All the skills in the world, but by the time he starts clicking it together, he's in his mid-30s. I'd like to see him go out there, get a signature victory. Jonathan Martinez win would do a whole lot for him, and then just stay active. As long as there's no injuries, he knows better than I do, because when you're that old and you've been a wizard sent back in time, maybe it's better to just select your spots. But I'll tell you what, the guy's got huge power in his hand, huge powers in both hands that can't be rated. Solid striking, solid wrestling, solid grappling. I may be overvaluing him in a lot of areas, but there's certain guys that you just click with that you're like, yeah, a guy like Nate Landwehr, yeah, they could give up certain aspects. He might not be the better grappler. He might not be the better this. They're going to give you everything they got. They're going to fight for your dollar. I like him. Jonathan Martinez, meanwhile, he's a lot faster. I can't even say he's faster. McGhee is really fast. Speed-wise, it's probably comparable. Like, Martinez is a slick guy himself. His technical boxing, not bad. His kicking game, that's where he excels. Loves these low kicks. He's able to move linearly, laterally, stay out of harm's way, kick. Eventually, your lead leg is just busted up. You're tired of chasing him. He's got very, very good volume. I can't say he's a huge power guy per se, but he just continuously chip shot, lets the judges know who's clearly ahead. You look back at a couple of these fights, though. There's this 6-fight winning streak that gets snapped his last time out by Jose Aldo. But that fight with Said Nurmagomedov, he got outstruck 47-38, taken down 3 times, and almost submitted. I don't know how he got that fight, to be honest with you. So there's areas that you could exploit in his ground game and his striking. If you can take him down, hold him up against the cage, he's not going to rack up this huge volume. He's not going to be able to get those kicks going. But beyond that, in order to kick, you need space. You need a guy that's going to be willing to sit there and wait for you to kick. McGhee's not that guy. McGhee's going to be on his ass, giving him no space to set up shop for those kicks. So he's going to be forced to exchange with him in the pocket. And when he exchanges with him in the pocket, I think he's going to get knocked out. Only reason I say that is I go back to this fight with Davy Grant, right? He gets Davy Grant in the early going. The first round, he's way faster. Grant, as we all know, he's a British journeyman type guy, but very plodding, but very tough, right? In that first round, Martinez is dancing around him, hurts him, knocks down Davy Grant. Second round, Davy Grant just decides, I'm going to dog walk this guy. I might not be as fast and as technical as him, but I'm just going to cause him to fight off his back foot and make a mistake. And then he catches Jonathan Martinez. Since then, Martinez has been fairly risk averse, but they've given him Vlad Lazishvili, only actually had one fight in the UFC and they cut him. Alejandro Perez, cut from the UFC. Vince Morales just got re-signed, but lost his re-sign. Cub Swanson, it was a farewell Cub. Said Nurmagomedov, I thought he lost, and Said's more of a 125er. Adrian Yanez, quality victory, but Yanez does not really want what he, was supposed to be. And then I'm the idiot that bets him against Jose Aldo, buying into this 6-fight winning streak, buying into Aldo's on his way down and Martinez is on his way up. And when he faces someone that has superior power than him, he's kind of gets a little bit gun shy. He's not able to quite get going with that rhythm and that flow. He's not taking the same amount of chances. When he's in a flow state, he throws combinations. Combinations allows him to be successful. Once he feels that power on guys, he starts resorting to jab, kick, move. I think McGhee's just going to junkyard dog him. It might be a close first round. He might lose the first round. It might be a close-ish second round, but at the tail end of the second round, or into the third round, McGhee's either going to ice him or he'll have landed enough shots that Martinez goes into retreat mode, similar to the Aldo fight, survives, but loses a decision. So I got Marcus McGhee minus 130, minus 140, whatever it is that the number is you're looking at right now. I'll be playing it. Maniac McGhee, that's my boy.
Yeah, no, kind of all makes sense to me. McGhee's the side that I like in this fight as well. I just think he's kind of, same gym. Kind of, it's like, and they seem to be good at finding these guys. It's MMA lab with Jared Cannonier. Just like it's kind of like peak Jared Cannonier. And peak Jared Cannonier didn't really happen until he was like 33, 34. Like he was a little bit longer in the tooth. Now he's 40. I think some of the wheels maybe are starting to fall off for Jared, but still a beast at 40 years old. Just walks you down. Pressure. Tough to take down. Good volume. Obviously, tremendous power. If Martinez isn't able to land like a crafty head kick, something that stuns him, catches McGhee by surprise, I think McGhee just doesn't really show much respect to the jab. Walks through it, gets in tight, and just unloads. So, like McGhee quite a bit in this fight. He will be definitely on my betting card, and in terms of props, I guess him by knockout is like plus 225. Don't hate it, don't love it, but probably will have some of it because I'm a sick degenerate, Cody. We move on down. We've got Eryk Anders taking on Chris Weidman, minus 123 for Anders, plus 106 for Long Island's own Chris Weidman. Weidman, eye poke, minus 1,000 is the lock of the week here, I think, Coates. That win over Bruno Silva, in hindsight, you go back and watch it. It's just like, that was so egregious that you're just like, who's making money off of this stuff? Like, it was very, very clear to everyone. And it's like, they have replay assistant every, and like, it just, they didn't flip the results. Like, kind of, it's like they pulled a fast one over everyone. I haven't loved Anders that much in his career, and then you bring him into mostly a decision guy. Weidman looks slow, but it's like you're bringing him into a crowd that will be cheering for him. He's a legend around these parts. I think it's dogger pass, so Chris Weidman in front of the home crowd gets maybe a controversial decision, but that's how I would play it. What about you?
Yeah, I could see it happening simply because it's in New York, and I think that's the reason why the UFC is going back to the old gloves. The New York Athletic Commission just awful, just awful. And I would go as far as to say that they probably said, whoa, 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 you guys got new gloves. Well, they're not approved by the New York State Athletic Commission.
Yeah.
So, you have to go by the gloves that are approved, and those are the old gloves, which is why they're switching it. Tinfoil hat, though, it would be like, ooh, we need Chris to win, so we'll put him in New York and we'll allow him to finger blast people in the eyes with the old gloves. I don't think that's the case, but that is a funny joke. I like it. Beyond that is that Eryk Anders is more of a go through the motion kind of guy. Like, he can't take you down, but he's not going to land a whole lot of ground and pound. He's not going to submit you. So he can hold you up against the cage and he might be able to take you down and not do anything with it. So robbing him would be the easiest thing to do. All of his fights are massively subjective. And I mean, he fights bad guys. Him versus Jamie Pickett. He got knocked down by Jamie Pickett, but overall he outstruck him 23-20 and he had 5 takedowns. He wins the fight because he had 5 takedowns. He wins the fight because of superior control time, but he actually outstruck Pickett 23-20. There's no ground and pound. There's no damage. There's no volume. It's just, I control the guy. Well, taking down Jamie Pickett and controlling him would be one thing. Taking down Chris Weidman and controlling him, that'd be completely different. Well, Weidman's shot to bits. I think we can all agree to that. But yeah, Boy still knows how to wrestle. Boy still has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Anders isn't just going to bowl him over. So you got a striking battle. You got a striking battle between Eryk Anders that is, again, he's a lower volume guy versus Weidman, who at one time would absolutely torch this guy in the first round, but he's just not what he used to be. And so as such, he'll probably go through the motions like he did in the Brad Tavares fight. Tavares is a better kickboxer, so he exploited Weidman's weaknesses standing. I don't think Anders will. Also, Chris Weidman blew like his leg out in that fight. He hurt his knee. So how could you trust him in this fight? You really can't. But again, it's at home. It's a farewell fight. It's probably his last go. They've given him something that should be relatively competitive for him and doesn't pose some huge threat of a finish, right? When I look at Anders, he could have got robbed against Jamie Pickett, I suppose. Not really, but he did get knocked down. That one was greasy. Against Marc-Andre Barrios, he also gets knocked down. He gets outstruck. He loses the decision. His fight with Jung Young Park, everyone was screaming robbery. He got robbed. He got 3 takedowns against Jung Young Park. And he had almost 5 minutes of control time against Jung Young Park. But Park outlands him 105-65 while his back's up against the cage. That's how little Anders is doing from offensive positions. That if you're simply laying up against the cage while he struggles to take you down and you're landing short little shots, 12-6s won't be legal here, by the way, because it's in New York. But if you're just keeping busy on him, he just doesn't do anything. They've given Weidman a very winnable fight here, and I feel like he almost should capitalize on it. But man, how could you feel good, right? You've got a 40-plus-year-old Chris Weidman who's coming off a win over Bruno that, yeah, again, it was largely due to the eye pokes. Prior to that, he looked god-awful against Brad. And then prior to that, he just hasn't really had a whole lot of spots in the last number of years. He's banged up, but he's not the only guy in this card that's probably going to retire after the show. So I feel like the UFC knows what they're doing. They're trying to give a bunch of these guys the same spot. John Jones, we talked about it. He may have one mega fight after this, but he could very well just retire. Doesn't want to fight Aspinall, might just retire. Stipe almost certainly is going to retire. Chandler, I'd like to say he has something in the tank, but if he goes out there and gets KO'd, he hasn't fought in 2 years, he's been living family life, it's not crazy to think he'd go away. Paul Craig's got 5 KO losses in the UFC. If he gets KO'd by Bo Nickal in the first 2-3 minutes of this fight, not crazy to think Paul Craig's done. Chris Weidman is done. Eryk Anders is very close to done. We're about to talk about Jim Miller, who's, I don't know how much closer you could get to done. There is a bunch of these guys that I think the UFC is putting them on a nice show, on a nice pay-per-view, in a nice venue, with a nice live crowd, giving them nice, competitive, winnable fights. They just got to go and capitalize. Weidman was a champion for them. He's done a lot for the organization. This should be his swan song, and they've matched him up accordingly. So I'll take Weidman, but boy, oh boy, is it going to be low this week.
Yep, we got the aforementioned Jim Miller. He's an underdog. 2, Damon Jackson. Jackson's a minus 172 favorite. The pride of New Jersey. Sparta, New Jersey, I believe. Post Lyme disease, Miller can be after plus 145. Who you got here, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, it seems like since Damon Jackson got his hair plugs done in Turkey, he's had like this new swag about him, man. Like, I don't mind it. He's always been like a savvy veteran that he can strike, he can grapple, he can do it all. He just struggles to kind of put it together at the highest level and beat these elite level of guys. But even though he's 1-3 in his last 3 fights, just look at Pretty much everyone he's fought for a while. Guy's fought Ilya Topuria in the UFC. He's fought Levon Makashvili, who was good at the time. Beyond that, his last 5 fights, he's fought Pat Sabatini, Dan Ige, Billy Quarantillo, Alexander Hernandez, Chepe Mariscal. So all the guys he fights are still relevant. They're relevantly good. Chepe Mariscal's cracked into the top 15. Hernandez just won his last fight. He's a fringe top 20 guy. Billy Q, has come on some hard times, but is another fringe top 20 guy. Danny Ige fights anybody, anytime, anywhere. Kind of more of a fringe top 15 guy. Pat Sabatini, an absolute problem for a lot of people. Those guys are all still currently good. Jim Miller, they book him because he's been fighting in the UFC since like 2006. He gets more preferential treatment. Jesse Butler, Eryk Gonzalez. I don't know. I just feel like what we saw at UFC 300 was Jim asked the promotion, hey guys, I fought on UFC 100. I fought on UFC 200. Give me one more on UFC 300. They gave it to him. He fought Bobby Green. We watched that fight, Paul. They could have stopped it a number of times. He took an absolute beating. Against these young veterans or these young fighters or somebody that's in a similar position to him where they're a little over the top, yeah, maybe he can still go out there and land that right hand. He's got fluid boxing. He's obviously got BJJ black belt. If he takes you down, it's going to be a problem. He kind of is a win condition under 1.5 round type guy at this stage of his career, but he's still that salty dog. He's still going to be able to go out there and perform, but it becomes less and less. I would say that this is very well near the end of the line for Jim Miller. And against Damon Jackson, he's still relatively competitive against guys that are going to go on to bigger and better things. They're both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. Miller can win this fight when he takes down Damon Jackson. Jackson off his back. It's 2024. You can't just catch a guy like Miller with a submission. Miller's on top. He's going to be in a position of control. He's going to be landing the ground and pound. He's going to be neutralizing him. That'll win on the judges' scorecards. It's that taking him down is going to be a little bit more difficult. Jackson's got to maintain that range. He's got longer reach on him. He should be able to just land from the outside. And then when they inevitably start brawling in the pocket, his chin needs to hold up. He needs to take what Miller's got, return fire, outwork him, slowly crack him down. If this thing's 1-1 going into the third, I think Damon Jackson wins. And I really don't see Miller winning the first 2 rounds. If Miller wins, he needs to just find the button, grab the neck, get it over with as soon as possible. If not, you'll see a competitive first round Jim Miller, a competitive but less second round Jim Miller. By third round, I feel like Damon Jackson should be in the driver's seat. So I'm actually going to take Damon Jackson for this one. But if you want to take a shoey, the only reason I say it is because you have been better than any. Next to Vince Pichel, Jim Miller has cashed more tickets than you as an underdog, than pretty much anybody I know. But I feel like you got a similar sense that I'm getting here, that Miller's on the last few fights of his career. And even though it's not a bad fight for him, it's somebody that's still got a lot more gas in the tank than he does.
Yeah, Miller's like he's 41 at this point, but like he's an old Pontiac that's been driven on the highway. Not even on the highway. Like he's been driven in the city for the last 20 years. The wheels are falling off. It's a little bit rusty, everything like that. I've never been a Damon Jackson guy, and I don't think I'm going to bet him here. But I'm also... Jackson's got good enough grappling to keep this competitive and not get exposed by Miller, which I feel like it's kind of Miller's only real path these days. Not many guys that Miller's able to just go tit for tat with in the striking exchanges. One, his durability is not quite the same as it used to be. Definitely take a beating, but he's just a lot slower. And credit where credit's due. Damon Jackson does come out sometimes and just comes with such a ferocity and aggression. I don't know if Jin can really match anymore. I won't be fading Jim Miller, but I will be picking his opponent, Damon Jackson. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that Jim Miller gets the W, because it would be good to see. And frankly, I feel like we're at the point now where it's maybe if he does get that win, he gets that that moment in his career that maybe the UFC kind of steps in and goes that, in front of your home crowd, that may be the last one that we give you type of thing. Because I don't want to see it end bad for this guy, because he's been such a stalwart for the organization. And yeah, winning this fight, then you start fighting some young up-and-comers and stuff. We know how this stuff goes. It gets really ugly, and it gets ugly fast. We got David Onama taking on Roberto Romero. Minus 1,100 for Onama. Romero can be had for plus 750. I haven't had a chance to watch anything on this Romero guy, Cody. I did look through his Tapology, and he's got a couple pretty sketchy losses, and pretty recently some sketchy losses. Onama's obviously looked like a super prospect in the fact that like he's super long. Grappling seems to be coming along. He hits super hard. He seems to be durable. Cardio is a bit of a question mark. That's when he's like been exposed, I think. But I think he's starting to kind of figure that out. I can see why he's a big favorite over somebody with the record of Romero. Do you have anything to kind of fill into this? I mean, it's minus 1,100. I think what you're probably going to be is like, oh, I like Onama more than I like Ruffy at similar price, and I totally get that. But when I look at those types of numbers, I mean, they don't really add very much to anything that you could possibly be betting. So they tend to be avoids. He'll be the pick. Don't plan on betting this fight. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, actually, guys like that are minus 900, minus 1,000, minus 1,100, that range, it does add. If you add all three of them to whatever your lock of the night is, it will 100% add. But that's why the book always wins when people try to do stuff like that, because you add the three biggest favorites, and one of them shits in your apple pie. We all know that, Paul. So of the three big favorites on this card, Nickal, Ruffy, and in this case, David Onama, in my humble opinion, who is going to shit in the apple pie? It would be a Ruffy of those three. Maybe all three win, sure. But if one guy was going to do it, I do feel less confident about that one. When I look at this Roberto Romero, I couldn't tell you why he's in the UFC. One, like you're saying, sketchy level of competition, sketchy losses. These losses are 3 years ago, so it's really not all that long. He did not have to fight on the Contender Series. He did not have to fight any notable names in his career. He does not have some long winning streak. He's actually lost 2 fights back. I couldn't quite tell you why he's in here, other than it's short notice. They need somebody to step in. David Onama is not somebody that most guys want to take on a short notice call up. And the UFC just doesn't care anymore. There's no earn your way here. There's no you have to win on the Contender Series. There's no you have to do this. The guy's 8-3. It's a good enough looking record. Let's just throw him out here to die. And just like Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, who we broke down last week, he's minus 800. And the sense here is that he's probably going to kill this guy. Now, the guy's 7-0, so there's no reason that you should believe he's going to kill the guy. But when you watch the tape, it dawns on you, how did this guy get signed to the organization in the first place? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. He shouldn't be here. He's not good. He's not beating anybody good. He didn't earn his Dana White watched him live, skill assessed him live with both matchmakers and said, that guy could cut it here. It's just, we need a warm body on 4 days' notice who's got their medicals up to date. Romero's the guy that jumps in. Turns pro in 2019, goes 1-2 in his first 3 fights. Against one of those losses, Julian Baez, the guy's 1-3, and he loses a very clear-cut unanimous decision. After that, 0-1, 1-1, 2-1. Fights a 4-0 guy, it's a draw. Fights another 4-0 guy, loses a split decision to him. That Ivan Tena guy, he just fought on LFA. He got knocked out in a minute and a half as a minus 250 favorite. They're not necessarily good guys, and he's struggled against those guys. His beats an 0-1 right after that. His step up against this Patrick Lenahy, 5-2. Okay, this fight's in December of 2023. It's less than 1 year ago. He fights a 5-2 regional show level opposition, and it's much of the same. Yeah, he's a little bit aggressive. Yeah, he's willing to put on a show and exchange with you and come forward, but he's just gonna be a risk to his own health. The only difference I can see between this and the fight last week with Zaleski is that guy was just dead man walking, ready to get hit and go down. Or that Scroggins guy. Scroggins just waiting to die. Mm-hmm. This guy's Mexican, so chances are that he'll actually take he's going to take a few of those punches, right?
Never been
Onama's
finished.
just going to be way cleaner than him, stay to the outside, use the speed, use the athleticism. You're fighting in a big cage, so just kind of matador this guy, let him come to you. But you have the ground advantage over him all day. If Onama wants to take him down, perfect. If Onama wants to submit him, likely going to be on the table. If Onama just wants to keep this thing standing and walk him into a big right hand or maybe an elbow over the top or something, I think it's all going to be on the table. The fact that it's likely going to be striker versus striker at minus 900, minus 1,000, you don't love it, but then you dawns on you, Onama's so much better of a grappler that why make it striker versus striker? Why not just take this guy down? The fact is he's got multiple avenues that he can get this thing done. He can get it done on the feet. He can get it on the ground. He can get it done by decision if he wants. David Onama cruises here, and it's still a good experience for him to go out there and make the walk and shake off the ring rust, but Onama's capable of hanging with top 15 guys. Onama was putting it on Nate Landwehr before he gassed. You got to be a certain level of tough to beat David Onama, and I just don't see it out of Roberto Romero. So, yeah, I would probably pay the piper here and take this money line, but more than likely you're going to chase a prop of Onama inside the distance because when you've never felt this type of pressure before, I get it. You've never been finished. I feel like Onama's submission, especially late, once he really puts a beating on him and tires him out, might be live. But again, when you're Mexican and you have great durability, you'll see a lot of these times. They'll just take everything you got and eventually make it to the last horn. So Onama's the play in both situations. I don't love this fight simply because I'd like to see him take a more stiffer opponent, but they tried to book him. The guy didn't show up. So unfortunately, tough guys like Roberto Romero are there to save the day, and he's doing that. But I'm just not impressed with his resume.
No. We're on the same page there. All right, we'll move on. We've got Marcin Tybura taking on Jhonata Diniz. Tybura minus 145 favorite. Diniz can be had for plus 120. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad this one's somewhat early because I may take a huge bath on it. I just feel like Tybura rolls up Jonathan Diniz. Now, again, I could be wrong on that. But when I look at Diniz, right, we 100% know that this guy's got a huge grappling deficiency in his game. In his second fight against Austin Lane, yeah, Austin Lane just shoots the first takedown, is able to take him down, is able to mount him, doesn't really do much with the position, and eventually does gas, allowing Diniz to get back up to his feet in the second round and eventually TKO him. But there's a giant hole in his ground game. You can try to get him up to snuff. Guys like Pereira, they came with a giant hole in their grappling as well. But it's going to take you a bunch of fights. It's going to take you a bunch of training. When you're one of these, I'm almost in my mid-30s strikers, it's a little bit of a learning curve. The thing with Alex Pereira is that he's a legendary striker. He's a two-time glory, two different world weight classes, world champion in the greatest kickboxing organization. Diniz is not. Diniz fought a couple good guys and lost those fights. Otherwise, he was a serviceable kickboxer. He's not an elite level kickboxer. And I just don't think he's got the ground skills. So I got a guy that's a one-dimensional striker, similar to a Cesar Almeida, who at least had more credible victories. It's that fight with Carl Williams. Carl Williams has got the most cancerous style. It's just boring. It's just, he takes you down, he smothers you, he'll shoot 8, 9, 10 takedowns if he needs to. If he doesn't get them, fine. He'll just continuously push you up against the cage. It's super boring. He's coming up in the last fight of his deal. The word on the wire is somebody gets in his ear and says, Carl, the UFC will re-sign you because you have a winning record with the promotion, but they cut Jared Rochal, who had a winning record in the promotion. They cut Arjun Bular, who had a winning record in the promotion. Because they fight the same style as you, dog. They just get takedowns and they don't do nothing with them. Nobody wants to see it. So do something. Carl could have taken down Diniz. Instead, for the first 2 rounds, he opted just to stand with him. And even fighting this great kickboxer in his own game, Carl Williams didn't look out of place. He was losing, but it wasn't like he was getting smoked. I didn't see some super flashy techniques. I didn't see some massive power at Diniz. Carl Williams was fine. He just was losing the fight. And then in the 3rd round, it dawns on him like, okay, I did what they asked for the first 2. Now I'm going to try what I should have done the entire fight. And that's commit to a real takedown. And he immediately takes Diniz down for like 3.5 minutes. Diniz can't do nothing. He's so bad off his back, Paul, that someone competent just needs to go and take him down. Tybura is like the gatekeeper of the division. He's fought in quite literally everybody. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's got a nasty little takedown game. He only shows 33% takedown accuracy, but again, he's taking down Tai Tuivasa, 265 plus. He took down Blagoy Ivanov, world Sambo champion. He took down Walt Harris, 265 plus, former basketball player. Took down Ben Rothwell, 265 pounds plus. Greg Hardy, former NFL football player. Maxime Grishin, really not that bad. Sergey Spivak twice the first time they fought. Stefan Struve 5 times. Took down Derek Lewis. He took down Fabricio Verdum. He took down Andrei Arlovsky, which is not easy to do. Took down Tim Johnson, who wrestled in college. He gets guys down. And a lot of these fights is that he's able to neutralize what's perceived as the better striker, get on top of them, and put them away. Tai Tuivasa, why would you want to stand with this guy? So he didn't, you know? Walt Harris. Why would you want to stand with this guy? So he didn't. He's got high ring IQ. He realizes at heavyweight, nobody's super durable, and he's a little bit older now himself. So he's not looking to get into this punch up. But as well as I do, if a punch up does come about, Tybura's not out of place as well. He's got a nasty left high kick. He's got good karate base. His striking's always been okay. It's his ability to adapt, smother guys up against the cage, take them down. If this ends up just strictly being a striking match, I would think Diniz is actually sharper and faster than him, weighs a little bit less, going to have a speed advantage from the outside, and maybe just sharpshoots. But seeing him struggle to really definitively put a beating on Carl Williams in mostly stand-up exchanges, I'm not sold on his stand-up abilities. I think Tybura, maybe not the better striker, but comfortable enough that I can hang with this guy for 2-3 minutes of the round, and then I'm going to take his ass down. Or I'm going to smother his ass up against the cage. And when that happens, you're going to see him start to take over. He's fought giants nearly his entire career, guys that cut down to 265 and then show up on fight day at 275. He's always been comfortable against that level. What he's getting here should be something similar. Expect him to be comparable, close in the striking, but eventually use that grappling to pull away in this fight. I don't know that he gets it done inside the distance, but he's not just going to lie on him like Austin Lane. If he gets in an advantage position on the ground, he will take advantage of it. So Marcin Tybura, to me, toughest test that Diniz has fought to this point of his career. I don't think he's quite ready. Meanwhile, Diniz is not as good as Sergey Spivak. He's not as good as Tai Tuivasa. He's not as good as Dom Aspinall. He quite literally is not really as good as Blagoy. Alexander Romanov is tricky, not good, but tricky. Alexander Volkov. All he does is fight the best guys, Paul. And Diniz, meanwhile, is coming off a win over Austin Lane and Carl Williams. So there's a huge skill gap here. I think there's a giant experience gap. I just need Marcin Tybura to go make it look as easy as I think he has the possibilities of making it look. So Tybura is a play for me. And again, I'm glad it's early on the card because I may take a bath on this one. Not top ticket because it's greasy heavyweight, but I do have confidence in him. He'll probably be around the third line.
Yeah, it was the first click that I had this week, like when props and stuff opened up. Plus I had like the money lines and like minus 118 kind of mixed in to kind of to cover my prop exposure. But yeah, I took, and like obviously the possibility that Diniz lands an absolute bomb is 100% on the table. It's heavyweights. We're going back to the gloves with with better knockout capabilities. Like I understand the risks that are involved here, but I took Marcin Tybura by submission, and it just kind of comes down to like the Tai Tuivasa fight. Rewatching the Austin Lane versus Diniz fight, it's like what happened for Diniz there is he was taken down, but he was taken down by somebody who was not prepared to fight over the course of 15 minutes. He was taken down by a guy who wrestled him in that spot, gassed so hard in round 2 that he had nothing left. And Tybura's not going to do that. Tybura could win by decision just by taking him down if he's not able to find the submission. But I took Tybura sub plus 375. Tybura sub round 1 plus 800. I'm hoping he just takes him down immediately, rolls them up. Ground and pound, of course, it's on the table. Everything is on the table. That's why there's prices attached to these things. But path of least resistance, path of not getting your head blown off is taking down the kickboxer immediately. And if Julian Lane's able to do it, Marcin Tybura shouldn't have too much problems early. And Diniz was getting ready for Derek Lewis, last week or the week before? It was the Edmonton card. So yeah, it's not like he was getting ready for some sort of stout wrestler. I think we talked about it off air. I don't think we talked about it like on the actual show, but we talked about it like leading up. We're like, oh, he's matched up against Tybura. I'm like, I don't like that matchup nearly as much for him as I think he did have a better chance against Derek Lewis, to be perfectly honest. So we're on the same page there. McGhee Gall takes on Ramiz Brahimaj, minus 132 for McGhee Gall, plus 112 for Brahimaj. Brahimaj's got like decent BJJ. I guess McGhee Gall was very competitive against Bassil Hafez last time out there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like falling into a trap. I haven't bet it yet, Cody. Maybe you should talk some sense into me. But like, I think grappling could be a wash between the two of them. Gall's striking's not great. Neither is Brahimaj's. I guess I can understand why it would be a competitive fight, but is Brahimaj a better grappler than Gall? In which case, if that's the case, give me the plus money. Plus money. Anytime you put plus money against Gall and his opponent's not like, CM Punk, I'm gonna be interested. Brahimaj for me. What about you?
I think Mickey Gall absolutely rolls him up. Brahimaj's a fraud, dude. He's just not good. Facts are he's just not good. Here's a guy that's known as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist. He's a black belt and he's a world champion. He's a world champion at blue belt. You won a world championship as a blue belt. He's not won as a purple belt, as a brown belt, as a black belt. In the world of Jiu-Jitsu, Ramiz Brahimaj is a nobody. In the world of MMA, his Jiu-Jitsu is really not all that good. He debuts in the UFC against Max Griffin, okay? In the Max Griffin fight, you got a guy here that cannot strike and he cannot wrestle, only has jiu-jitsu. And yet he comes in against Max Griffin and he shoots 0 takedowns. He gets absolutely boxed up, pillar to post, outlanded 74-45. His ear quite literally blows up to the point that the refs wave the fight off and they're like, oh man, your ear is quite literally about to fall off. He shot no takedowns. Now, why is that? Why was he just so comfortable to get punched up? He knows he can't strike. Even though he actually can't wrestle, he didn't even try. Weird. Okay. Then they give him Sasha Plotnikov. Well, now he goes to his wrestling. Plotnikov, no longer with the organization. Not good. Ramiz Brahimaj takes him down. He chokes him out in the very first round. Now, when you look at Ramiz Brahimaj, all of his wins are the first round. He needs to finish you right away. Because not only can he not strike and he not wrestle, he's got no cardio. So they match him up against Court McGhee. Now, Court McGhee is a shell of himself. He's nearing 40. He's got so much wear and tear on, and yet Court McGhee took Ramiz Brahimaj down 5 times. Court McGhee absolutely outgrappled Ramiz Brahimaj, pillar to post, gassed him out, outstruck him, and took a unanimous decision off him. So bad luck for Brahimaj. They book him against Michael Gilmore. Michael Gilmore came from the Ultimate Fighter, was like a Taekwondo guy out of Michigan, mid-30s, should have never been in the UFC, had 2 fights, one against Brahimaj, one against Andre Petrosky, finished in both, and then got released. He's not good. They give him to Brahimaj. Brahimaj submits him in the first round. Why? Because that's what he does, Paul. He needs to finish you in the very first round, preferably by rear naked choke, because otherwise he's going to get massively exposed. And that's what happens to him in the Themba Gorimbo fight. Themba is very raw, right? He's very green still. And yet he goes and does the exact same thing that Court McGhee did. He took him down 5 times. Brahimaj's jiu-jitsu, it's good if he's on your back. If he's on top of you, preferably on your back, he's got an okay rear naked choke. His jiu-jitsu is not good when he's off his back. He's not going to grab an arm. He's not going to set up a Kimura. He's not going to throw up a triangle. He's not going to sweep to get on top. He's not going to clear space and get back up to his feet. He's useless. And he lands 3 significant strikes that entire fight. He got outstruck 43-3. Even the one takedown that he got, he just couldn't do anything. I struggle mightily to see what this guy does well other than if he was to slip on a banana peel and land on your back, maybe he could grab a rear naked choke. If it happens in the first round.
Gall's
now,
pretty
look at
bad.
Gall.
I think you're giving him a little
Gall's pretty bad.
Credit.
Yes, Gall's pretty bad. Okay, the difference is Gall gets burnt in the fire, right? He's a 1-0 pro when the UFC signs him for no other reason than a freak show fight with CM Punk. Okay, he's not ready to be there. He's like a brown belt at the time. He's like what would be considered a prospect, but he's 1-0. He should have fought on the regional scene. He should have fought in LFA. Instead, they did a giant disservice to this guy's career by bringing him into the UFC and throwing him in the fire. It was fun when it was Mike Jackson, CM Punk, Sage Northcutt. Great. Randy Brown's a legit contender. Diego Sanchez was 40 UFC fights deep when he fought him. Mike Perry, the current bare knuckle boxing champion. Alex Morono still cutting it in the UFC. Mike Malott, tough test. Bassil Hafez. They weren't giving him a whole lot of favors. He took a few weak guys here and there, but for the most part is that he only really fights good guys or good-ish guys. Now look at all of his losses. Randy Brown smoked him. 41-7 was the strikes. He came nowhere close. It was an awful fight. Diego Sanchez took him down 4 times, ragdolled him, TKO'd him in the second. So both losses, he's not competitive. His fight with Mike Perry knocked him down. Mike Perry took him down, out-grappled him, outlanded him 76-55. He won 0 rounds. In any of his losses, he's never competitive. Alex Morono drops him, outstrucks him 90-65. Mike Malott flat out knocks him out in the first round. And then Bassil Hafez's last time out. by far the most competitive he's looked in defeat at any point in his career. Bassil Hafez landed the 3 takedowns. He got out of those 3 takedowns a minute and 12 seconds of top control. Because as soon as Mickey Gall would hit the ground, he pops right back up. He also is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under David Adiva. He also has an ability to out-grapple opponents in certain spots. Is that they've done him a great disservice by matching him with Bassil Hafez and Mike Malott and Alex Morona. Like, it's a tough 3-fight losing streak for a guy that's not all that talented. But in losing and showing back up to the gym, in suffering defeat and looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I want to keep doing this, you're going to get better, man. I don't care how many you lose. He's not old. He's not washed. He's not young. But he's not washed at any point. And I would say he's still adding to his game. Him versus Ramiz Brahimaj, I think he actually is substantially a better striker. Him versus Ramiz Brahimaj wrestling, I would say comparable, but slight edge towards Gall. The grappling, I'm giving the advantage to Gall. If Brahimaj does manage to get him back down or get him down, Mickey Gall's getting back up. If Mickey Gall gets Ramiz Brahimaj down, he's going to do some damage from that top position. If this fight does not hit the ground and ends up being just a straight up stand up battle, Ramiz, what's Ramiz going to land? 20 strikes? Like, he's not a striker, man. He's not a striker at all. I got Mickey Gall. The number's close enough that I'm probably going to put way more than I should on it. And if you want to take a shooty bet,
no,
I'll take it all day long.
Not. What I was going to say,
I don't mind Mickey Gall in this spot, and I never say
what I was going to say is that you flipped my pick with all of your great points. And if I lose money on Mickey Gall, I'm going to yell at you next week.
I hear you, dude. I hear you.
Because I didn't want to do it, Cody, and you made me do it.
I know.
It's not my money making the pick. It's your fault for telling me all of these good things about Mickey Gall. It's all on you. Oh, it looks like Mickey Gall just had a baby. Baby swag. 4 weeks ago, as of
Papa
3
Gall.
weeks ago. So 7 weeks ago. It's got seven.
Papa Gall's undefeated.
Yeah, Sainty. What a name.
Sainty Gall.
Sainty Gall.
Got a bit of a ring to it.
Yeah.
It sounds mysterious, or definitely not American. Sainty Gall.
Well, good for Mickey Gall.
Good for him. Yeah, good for him.
Baby
good
swag. Baby swag. I'm all in. I'm all in.
Let's do it.
All right, we got Oban Elliott taking on Bassil Hafez, the aforementioned Bassil Hafez. Oban is the minus 250 favorite. Bassil Hafez could be had for plus 205. What are your thoughts here?
So this is a great way that you could pull the shoot on your Mickey Gall bet right before. Is that see what's going on with Bassil Hafez? He's so hard to gauge. His regional show career, he's very well put together, very very stocky, muscular, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, known as a grappler. But I can't say that I've really been all that impressed with him on the regional scene. Nice win over Evan Butcher. I think he fought what's his name? Was on the Christian Savoie from New Brunswick, was on the Contender Series. He's got a couple decent names on his regional show record. Just don't think he's elite by any stretch. He takes a short notice fight against Jack Maddalena. He's a giant underdog. I don't think he's got much of a chance in this fight. And he really did show up and show out. Because he was on short notice, it's understandable that his cardio would have been a little bit shot. And that's the only thing that let him down in that fight. He was taking down Jack. He took all of Jack's best punches. He returned fire to a number of spots. But his ability to just duck under, get those takedowns, and neutralize them was serving him well. I had it 1-1 going into the third, so I agreed with Jack Maddalena winning the decision. But a lot of people had Hafez winning the first 2 rounds. He looked like one of these guys similar to a Jeremiah Wells. He's got a lockdown game that once he does inevitably get you down, there's just not a whole lot of space to operate which from. He's so physically strong and commanding with his physique that you really got to just outmuscle him, and it's going to tire you out just as much as him. If you're down 2 going to the third, it would be a problem. It's his very next fight against Mickey Gall. Now he's the big favorite. Now everybody's team Bassil Hafez. He looks so good in defeat in a split decision loss to Jack Maddalena, who's everybody's baby right now and a top 10 guy, that he's just going to roll right through Mickey Gall, right? And like either Gall, which I'm saying is improving and gave him a stern test, or Bassil's really not all that good, man. Like he got his takedowns, but unlike Jack Maddalena who accepted the positions, Gall just got right back up on him. You know, as a result, he's now forcing a lot of these punches. He took a lot of clean shots as well. He was able to outland Mickey Gall 95-83, but Mickey Gall hitting you 83 times, a lot of which were very clean and on the chin. Not a great look, not being able to hold him down, not a great look. Giving up the takedown to him briefly, even though you're so much more physically commanding, not a great look. There was just certain spots, and then you think, okay, well, he's actually 33 years old, 32, 33 years old. He's got a lot of muscle on him. If you can make this guy work, yeah, he'd be vulnerable. And if he can't rely on his ace in the back pocket, which is the takedowns and the control time, it's not going to be great. Oban Elliott, meanwhile, he seems tailor-made to just take him down. He gave up 2 takedowns to Val Woodburn. Like, I would say that that's going to be an absolute avenue to exploit, but I made the mistake of trying to exploit that avenue in his last fight against Preston Parsons. Preston Parsons can wrestle. He has a on paper solid wrestling advantage, and he went 1 for 9 on the takedowns against Oban Elliott. In fact, most of those takedowns, he wasn't even getting close. Elliott's pretty big for this weight class. He's got good hips. He's got a bit of a judo background. He's able to stay up on his feet for the most part. And then if he's able to keep this thing standing against Hafez, then he may have a chance at outlanding him. The same way that Mickey Gall had a lot of success with his striking. Oban Elliott is a much better striker than Mickey Gall. He could have the winning recipe. Hafez also muscles a lot of those takedowns. So if Oban Elliott can really make him work and keep those first 2 rounds competitive, have it split 1-1 going into the third, he should be able to take command in the third and win it. It just depends on how those first 2 go down. So, gun to my head, I really don't have a whole lot of underdogs on this card, and obviously some of them are going to win, so I'm going to take Hafez. But that being said, you've seen last week, the week before, like, just so many of these favorites are just doing their jobs and winning that don't just gun to your head, take an underdog for the hell of it. Take the guy you think is going to win. Hafez, I think he can neutralize him. He's somewhat from the area. What's he, New Jersey? I hope he gets I hope he gets the pop from the crowd. I hope he gets the judges give it to him. And when you talk about fights that are going to be close, maybe a split, maybe something that you got to rely on hometown cooking to get through, or a bad New York Athletic Commission, this one kind of does scream that. It's going to be mostly grappler versus grappler. Who's going to have more control time? Who's going to do more with the small space? It's probably going to be relatively competitive and close. So I'll take Hafez by decision. If you're a split decision kind of guy, maybe chase the split decision prop on this one as well.
Like it. I haven't bet the Hafez because I've been thinking along the same lines. I just think that, and I know all the favorites have been rolling, and there's no quote unquote, there's no value in a losing ticket. It is what it is. But like, eventually one of these close fights are going to go to decision, be close, and the underdog's going to get the nod. Like, that's just, sometimes it feels like those things don't come through, but eventually it does happen. And I think Hafez does kind of all the things that I want in a plus. I mean, the number's growing, so I haven't done anything yet, and I've seen it growing from like plus 185. I see like plus 200 or plus 220s out there at this point as well. So number kind of keeps growing, and I'm like, yeah, I could lose, but it's like Hafez, what you do know from him is that the guy's super, super durable, doesn't get knocked out. Grappling is on point. He's just able to like muscle guys down. I guess against Gall, he wasn't able to like hold position and stuff, which is a bit of a red flag. But yeah, like the Jack Della fight, whether he won or lost is kind of irrelevant. He was like a plus like 600 underdog and made it at least competitive. He's got one path in his game. His stand-up's very, very robotic. Maybe he's got a little bit of power, but he needs top position. He needs to be able to hold position, and I think he could pull this out. As the number grows, I've just been kind of biding my time, but I'll end up with some money on Bassil Hafez this week. And finally, we've got Veronica Hardy taking on Eduarda Moura. Hardy, a minus 145 favorite. Moura can be had for plus 120. Hardy, obviously formerly Macedo. Dan Hardy's wife. They train at Danaher's. They're in New York all the time. It's almost kind of like Dan Hardy. We talked about it last time they were on the program, and I guess her last fight, it ended up kind of feeling a lot closer than she ended up getting the dub, but like a little bit sketchier than I had kind of foreseen against JJ Aldrich there. But yeah, she's on a nice little run here at 125 pounds. She was up at 135, and she was just so outsized by all of these people. My problem with Moura here is former strawweight. I know that she failed both times trying to make 135, but it seems to be like pretty one-dimensional, like wants to make a grappling match. Her nickname's Ronda, wants to bully you, muscle you around, and I feel like moving up a weight class and trying to be the weight bully is a recipe for disaster. I took some Hardy a little bit early in the week when it was minus 125. I still think she wins. And she will be my pick to open the card. And if she loses, well, there's 12 more fights for me to make my money back, Cody. What's your take here?
I can't agree more. So I don't know if they did this for me specifically so I could lose a whole bunch of money twice this week, but the first 4 fights are my value, right? Veronica Hardy, there's a lot of good value here. Bassil Hafez is the only underdog I'm picking. Mickey Gall for the money line and Marcin Tybura, both those money lines, goddamn. Those 4 fights hit. The rest of it's the big favorites. They hopefully do their job. But yeah, the first four I actually really like. Mora, you made all the points I was going to make. She's a weight bully. She's a weight bully. She's not actually a 115. Her first 2 fights ago, she weighs in at 119, right? So she misses weight by essentially 3-4 pounds against Montserrat Ruiz. And then her last fight against Diniz Gomez, she weighed in at 116 and a half. So she misses weight by a half a pound. And let me tell you, when a fighter quits with a half a pound left to go, that means it's just like they've drained themselves to the max. She can't even find that half pound. Missed weight the fight before. Knows pressure's on. Gets 2.5 pounds closer than she did last time. Still can't do it. The back-to-back weight misses causes the UFC to say, you're going up a weight class. And now you've got Eduardo Moura, who relies on her ability to get a clinch of you, hold you up against the cage, and get those takedowns. Against Montserrat Ruiz, she got the 3 takedowns. She neutralizes her. She TKOs in the second. Nice performance, albeit missed weight. It's that last fight with Diniz Gomez. She did get a hold of the takedowns. She was able to take her down 5 times. It's that with the takedowns, she's not able to do much. Diniz Gomez eventually gets back up, and it's outlanding her. She got 5, sure. She went 5 for 26 on takedowns. 5 of 26. Now, on one hand, I appreciate the effort and the commitment. Dog on a bone. Why not chain wrestle? Why not stick to it? But beyond that, it's that her wrestling really isn't that good. Diniz Gomez does have suspect takedown defense. And the 21 takedowns that she stuffs, the judges see that. The short little elbows that you're landing, the judges see that. You getting outstruck 50-18, the judges see that. It doesn't matter that you got 5 takedowns. They see all the work and the damage. And so Ruiz, weight bully, needs to just be the bigger fighter, needs to peel you to the ground, needs to grab that submission. There's not a whole lot beyond that. Now, she could blame it on bad weight cuts, that's fine, but now you're moving up against Veronica Macedo, who fights at 125, but has fought at 135 in the past. She's way faster, I think, Macedo. She's got way better footwork. She's very hard tracking, get a hold of. And listen, she did the exact same thing against Jamie Lynn Horvat. Horvat's huge, man. It's just, if I'm faster than you, you come to me. As you're marching her down, she counters, she moves. She counters, she moves. Now, I will admit, Jamie Lee eventually did get the takedown. And when she did, she had like 3.5 minutes of control time of Macedo. Taking her down, being a bigger fighter, flattening her out, being on top, that would be the path of victory. I just think that Mora coming up the weight class, and you touched on this as well, coming up the weight class, you're now giving up speed, right? You're supposed to be the smaller fighter, but you're putting on this extra mass coming up. Macedo's pretty much always been undersized in all of her fights and has always been the faster fighter. You coming up, you're not going to match her speed for speed. Only now that physicality that you had at 115 doesn't translate as well at 125. Last thing being, when you look at when she was Veronica Macedo, she's actually terrible. She's trash. She's been Veronica Hardy. Damn, this girl's good, man. I think she's on a 3-fight winning streak. The point being, before when she was doing her own thing, right? Look how inactive she is. She fights in the UFC once in 2016. She fights the UFC once in 2018, 2 years later. She fought for them once in 2019, once in 2020, and she retires. Her last fight that she had in 2020, not retired, sorry, 2020, and then she left. That last fight that she had in 2020 was against Bia Malecki. Bia Malecki is 5'9" with a 74-inch reach and usually fights at 145 pounds. Yep. Why would you even take this fight in the first place? Nobody knows. But she's her own enemy. She'll just say yes to everybody, and she does the damn thing. Dan Hardy ends up meeting up with her. I don't know. I don't know their origin story. I don't really care. The main thing is that they get married, and Dan Hardy's got assets. Dan Hardy's got resources. He's got gym contacts with every gym in the world. He's currently a PFL advisor. He's got that Saudi money and he's focused on you. And beyond that, he's got a brilliant eye, you know? I can't say he was a good commentator because I thought he was awful every time he's on the microphone. He's a good I can break down fights, a strategist, similar to Robin Black with his, he finds small little minute details and explains them better than anybody. The guy's very brilliant, just not my kind of cat. I can't take away from him. He knows exactly what he's looking at. Having that type of specific training and that specific coaching, whereas all of a sudden you're not just in a room with 20 other girls learning the same move that everybody else is learning. You're all of a sudden on a program. You're all of a sudden got a different nutritionist. You've got a different strength and conditioning program. You're getting, one-on-one time and personal lessons. You're flying to New York to train with John Danaher. Why? Because John Danaher is quite literally the best jiu-jitsu coach in the world. No-gi jiu-jitsu coach in the world, North America. All the same, you're doing all the right things. And what do the right things do? She's a huge underdog against Juliana Miller, who she takes down 4 times, doubles up in the significant strike count, cashes as a nice underdog. Jamie Lee Horth, nobody really knows how she's going to do in that one. She fights a brilliant game plan to win the first 2 rounds and win that fight. I rate it. Her last fight with JJ Aldrich, you're right. Boring fight. But she's not trying to take down JJ, who's more of a counter striker. And Macedo is a counter striker. So you got 2 counter strikers mirroring each other. Neither girl's really trying to get the fight to the ground. Neither girl's really trying to overcommit because they know that their opponent's looking to just capitalize on that one small, minute mistake. So it's not a great fight. But for the record, she did outstrike her 36-27 and win the decision. 3 straight wins, 3 straight decisions. And similar to a John Jones, I know, crazy comparison, is that they're fighting with their ring IQ first and foremost. They're not looking to put on some crazy show. They're fighting to what's my best chance of winning. Macedo's not looking to overextend herself. She's not looking to make a mistake. She's looking to matador you, lure you in, cause you to make the mistake, and then she flurries with a quick 2-3 punch combination, and then she jumps out of dodge again. Yep. The refs see that. The judges see that. Everybody's seeing that she's outworking you. Meanwhile, you're getting frustrated from trying to track her down. If you overcommit, she might be able to take you down. There's just different avenues for her to frustrate opponents, cause them to play that range game, and she excels in specifically the range game. So I would think Veronica Hardy goes out there and continues the win streak. They're not booking her in deep. In fact, it's usually a punishment when the UFC says you're getting forced to move up a weight class. They give you a somewhat tough opponent, and Hardy is exactly that. She's still young, but she's got a ton of experience. She's got ultra high confidence right now because of a 3-fight winning streak. She's got on paper much better striking, grappling, a lot closer than you'd think it'd be. And for the first time, she's not going to be massively undersized. She's fighting a 115 or moving up. So I think there's a lot of good stuff going her way. Enough for me to pull the trigger and take her as my play.
Yeah, and the Aldrich fight too. It's like the significant strike totals are a little bit deceiving there.
Nothing was significant.
It was close, but you look at like the regular strikes and like the final tally or total strikes, and it was 69-38. She won, 29-28 on all 3 judges' scorecards. It was not a pretty fight by any stretch of the imagination, but she won, and it wasn't too debatable. Most people thought that Hardy should get the nod in that spot there. And yeah, the one thing that I think is the most wild about this fight altogether is that Hardy joined the UFC 8 years ago. We've kind of seen her around forever, and obviously you alluded to it. She was like very inactive earlier in her career, like taking 1 fight a year, yada, yada, yada. She's younger than Mora. She's still only 29 years old, whereas Mora's 30. And it's just like, you kind of feel like Macedo's some savvy veteran at this point. Like, she's really kind of developed. And you can tell in the last few years, probably with the help of Dan, who's like almost taking it on as like a coaching project at this point. It's like his career after his career, giving her the best training, giving her whatever he can to make her the best Veronica she can be. Yeah, it's just kind of wild. It's like she's 29 years old, so it's like this is her peak. This is the top end of her career right now. So yeah, watch her get weight bullied and subbed out in the first round to shit in our proverbial apple pies. All right, Cody, we're just about out of time, but before we go, hit him with the PRP.
This week we're going with Jon Jones, Charles Oliveira, Bo Nickal, Killer Karine Silva. Sorry. I'm gonna take James Llontop as the
Wow.
PRP pick.
Wild.
Yeah, I know that might be so stupid too. It seems so wide. I need a few
It
dogs. It's so
is.
wide. I'll take it. I'm gonna take Marcus McGhee. I like that one. Chris Weidman. That one's even. There's no dog. Damon Jackson. David Onama, Marcin Tybura, Mickey Gall, Bassil Hafez. That would be dog number 2, and then Veronica Hardy. As Paul and I were talking about before the show started. It's not like I got a ton of underdogs. No one's got a ton of underdogs. There's a lot of these even plays or close to even. You hit a few of those, like a Veronica Hardy. That's close to even. The Mickey Gall fight, close to even. Marcin Tybura, close to even. Chris Weidman is quite literally even. Marcus McGhee is close to even. If those guys were all come through for you, that gives you tons of it. You don't need to chase that 2-1 underdog and some one crazy. I'm not chasing James Llontop because it's so crazy. Part of it is, I guess. I think it's a competitive fight, way more competitive than the line would suggest. But it's dog or pass. Take the pass. That's a great option as well. But as sitting here as your co-host, Paul Shaughnessy, I will take the dog. Don't be like me if you don't want to. That's fine. Just take what you like, what you're absolutely comfortable with. But yes, as Paul mentioned, what does adding a minus 900 do for you on a money line? What does that do for you? Do you love Ruffy so much that he wins this fight very, very easily? That's fine if you do. On a personal level, I just don't quite. So yeah, only 2 official underdogs. I guess I'll go James Llontop. As you can all clearly see and hear right now, there's no confidence. It could very well be swayed by something I see at weigh-ins, let's say. But I guess I'll take him. And then my actual underdog would be Ramiz Brahimaj. So hopefully the 2 of them come through. The big favorites come through. Our close to even money guys come through. If you were to hit a PRP this week, it would be absolute gangbuster. But all the same, 13 fight pay-per-view, proper pay-per-view, solid offering by the UFC. Mike Tyson's fighting Jake Paul on the Friday.
Do you have a take on? Do you have a like? I feel like Jake Paul just wins all these fights. I mean, Mike Tyson's like 58.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's 57, I think. But yeah, no, maybe he's going to be turning 50.
And these fights they may be rigged. Like Pat asked me yesterday about it. And it's just like, one, I have a bad history of trying to analytically think through it. But I mean, the last couple of fights, Jake Paul has actually looked like legitimately a lot better. And who knows what to expect from Mike Tyson at this point.
Yeah, none of these fights are rigged, and I hear that all the time. It's rigged. It's rigged.
Could be rigged.
How, right? No, it is rigged. It's rigged in a different type of way, though. It's not rigged in the sense of this guy, my opponent knows that he's going to lose this fight willingly, and he's going to take a dive, and we've already rehearsed what round he's going to go down in, and it's a phantom punch, and he wasn't hurt. It's not rigged like that. It's rigged in that he stacked the deck in his favor. So it's a legitimate fight, but he's got 25 pounds on you, and you're shot to bits. You're a former welterweight that's chasing a paycheck, and he's got everything has to line up in a row.
And he's
look at his record. It's
so much HGH exactly that he's got a garden hose popping out of his neck, brother.
So that's a great point as well. When you look at his fights, not only are they tailor-made opponents, Nate Robinson, okay? Little Nate, the basketball player who used to win the slam dunk competition all the time. Ben Askren, he's a retired UFC welterweight wrestler. Tyron Woodley is a retired UFC wrestler. Anderson Silva was essentially a retired UFC middleweight, still giving up 20 pounds essentially to Paul. And again, he's got Muay Thai. He's got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's got other weapons that are not technical boxing. At no point did anybody say he's a great technical boxer. Those are big name guys you can capitalize on. When he fought Tommy Fury's a real boxer. You can say that Tommy Fury also pads his record, but keep in mind this is a Tommy Fury that's been boxing since the time he was born, okay? He's from a traveling gypsy fighter family. Everybody in the family, mom, dad, brothers, aunts, uncles, everybody knows how to box. The guy was a stout amateur boxer. He's 10-0 as a professional boxer. And Jake Paul was competitive with him. He just, at that point, you went from fighting absolute nobodies to fighting a guy that knew how to box. That jab alone won the fight for Fury. Why not run that thing back? I don't think Fury really wants to. Why? Because Fury had 25 years of boxing experience when he beat him, and Jake Paul had a couple years. Run it back. Jake Paul's getting better and better. Now, none of those are fake fights. The Nate Diaz fight. Nate Diaz is not throwing a fight for anybody, but the facts are that Nate Diaz is a terrible boxer. He's a good MMA striker. That stuff works in MMA. In boxing, hands by your side, feet flat, it's not a good look. But it's a great big name guy. Used to fight in the UFC at 155. He's not even a big 170. And he's going to fight you at near 200 pounds. It's tailor-made for you to win. But they're not fixes. Andre August, 10-1. Looks good, bum. Ryan Borland, driving an Uber, 17-2. Former Vegas Golden Gloves champ. Looks good. All looks good. But his guys are picking these guys very specifically. So now you move on to Mike Perry. Mike Perry fought in the UFC at 155. He fought in the UFC at 170. He's a bum of a striker, but he's a bare knuckle guy. It's a big name opponent who is half your size, who is not a real credible boxer. And when you're a multi-millionaire like Jake Paul is, you have all those same luxuries I was talking about with Veronica Hardy earlier, right? Is that you have a boxing coach that's committed to coming to you 2-3 times a day. You have a strength and conditioning coach. You have a whole crew that if you wake up and say, I feel like going to the gym right now, they say, sure, we're going to pull the Rolls Royce around the front. We'll pick you up and you go. He's got a crew. He's got every resource available to him. So he's going to exponentially get better at whatever it is he's doing than the average guy. You're probably a much better baseball player than Jake Paul is, Paul, because you used to play when you were younger. The facts are that if he committed 3 months of his life to it, he'd be way better than you ever will, simply because you have a regular job, you have a dog you got to go back to, you're now getting a little bit older, and he's got the money, the time, the resources, and the anabolic steroids to make him as good as he wants to do. Now, you say anabolic steroids. Seems like a bit of a bold statement, but it's not. His fights took place in Tampa, Florida. San Juan, Puerto Rico, Orlando, Florida, over in Abu Dhabi, Glendale, Arizona, Tampa, Florida. That's not by mistake. That's by design. Those states don't carry drug testing. So he's allowed to do whatever the hell that he wants and get away with it. This fight with Mike Tyson is technically an exhibition of some sort. They're going to say it's a pro fight. They're going to say it's an exhibition. The bottom line is there's not likely going to be any drug testing. And Mike Tyson, he'll probably be on steroids too. But he needs them because he's 57 years old. He had this blockhead HGH addict that's coming in here 30 years younger than him, that boxes 3 times a day, that has a full team around him. Yeah, he's going to win, man. And I've been having this debate with so many people that are like, I think Mike's going to knock him out. When have you ever seen a 57-year-old fighter win anything, right? Because we see 35-year-olds win in the UFC, and you and I talk about, watch, they're getting a little old, Paul. And then there's 40-year-old fighters, and when they win in the UFC, Paul, it's like, damn, a 4-year-old won.
When they're older than me, it's a bad time.
When was the last time a 45-year-old fighter won a fight in the UFC? Would it have been like Dan Henderson, a decade ago? When was the last time a 50-year-old fighter won in the UFC? Well, it's never happened. When was the last time a 55-year-old fighter won in the UFC? Well, it's never happened. When was the last time a 57 or 58-year-old fighter has won at all? It's not going to happen. I watched Guillermo Rigondeaux kill a guy last night, and he was 44, but he's Cuban, and 44 is not 57 years old. Last couple points. Mike Tyson in his prime, baddest man on the planet, the 80s, okay? It's like 5 decades ago. Beyond that, he's got asthma. Always had asthma. Can't fight more than a few rounds because he has asthma. Goes balls to the walls, knocks guys out because he's asthmatic, and he knows he can't fight to the later stages of the fight. Now you take this guy, 4 decades removed from the prime of his career, 3 decades removed from quitting on his stool against Kevin McBride. You're now going to throw him in the ring with a guy half his age, and all of a sudden he's not asthmatic. All of a sudden he's faster than he used to be. All of a sudden he's got all these different attributes and traits. There's nothing in the world that I would love to see more than Mike Tyson to knock this guy out. Nothing I would like to see more. But I got to be real with you. I truly, honestly do not see it happening. It's more of a dream. We're all dreaming that Mike Tyson beats this guy, but it's very selective matchmaking from his standpoint. I could see them having a gentleman's agreement. Don't try to knock me out, and I'm not going to try to knock you out, and we're just going to play around out there. They could fight to a draw, similar to Roy Jones versus Mike Tyson in a farce of a fight, glorified sparring, let's say. But if Mike Tyson decides to flip the script and gun one on Jake Paul, and Jake Paul takes offense to it and says scripts out, and it turns into a real, actual fight, I don't see Mike Tyson winning, and I really don't. Could win in the first round. Puncher's chance. Old 57-year-old guy lands one big shot, just like $1 Million Baby with Morgan Freeman, or Rocky when he beats Tommy Gunn. But those are movies, Paul. They're movies. You've not seen a 57-year-old fighter win in any combat sport discipline in quite some time. And if they did, it wasn't against some juice monkey half his age who's on a credible win streak right now and actually beaten people, not of note, but they're not, they have pulses, Guy's still 10-1 as a boxer. Guy's still 17-2 as a boxer. The UFC guys were all still decent UFC guys. Like they're still human beings he's knocking out. He's not fought in some great world champion yet. That's fine. He's got more than enough. So,
but he's not fighting a world champion. He's fighting a guy who
yeah,
hasn't been at that level for 30 years.
the most money I've ever won in gambling has always been parlays. You know that. But the biggest singular bet, biggest one shot, it's a money line
Was
that
McGregor
I ever won
versus
in my life
Mayweather.
was McGregor versus Mayweather, because it didn't matter how much logic you tried to talk to somebody. It was in one ear, out the other. They just didn't want to hear it. They'd be like, "Oh, Conor McGregor's
told
an
everyone
MMA
I
guy."
knew.
It's like, no, I'm trying to tell you, he has zero chance. Floyd will play with him and will win in any round he wants. Floyd bet a 10th round TKO and then proceed to go out there and TKO him in the 10th by design. Plays with him. And people couldn't see that, because when you have a larger than life character and people like it, they all go, "Oh, I don't know." And I honestly, this fight's getting so much hype because I talk to regular folk all the time that bring it up to me and they say, "Oh, what do you think is going to happen?" It's like, the fact that you even got to ask is concerning. Then when I explain my point, they haven't watched boxing in 5 years. They haven't watched a fight in 10 years, or they have no experience. They are just quite literally a just regular run-of-the-mill person that may tune in and see sports highlights once a year. And they're just like, "Well, I think you're wrong. I think Mike Tyson's got it." It's like, well, great. Because the reason the people like you exist is the reason that this is a bettable line when it should be. We're talking about these UFC guys that are 10, 11, 12 to 1 favorites. If this is an actual straight fight, no farce going on, yeah, I can't see why Jake Paul isn't a 12 to 1 favorite at the very least. If this is a pro boxing match, he'd be a minus 10,000 favorite. For sure. You see it every weekend.
The books are going to take an absolute bath if Mike Tyson wins. Because, yeah, like Pat and Jeff, and I've had other buddies in my group chats. It's all the same thing as like what you're saying. I'm like, I think Jake Paul's going to win. I hope he gets knocked out. Like, I haven't put money on it yet, so maybe I will change my mind and I'll actually, want Jake Paul to win from a financial standpoint. But like, I'm not a big Jake Paul guy. I'm not a big Jake Paul fan. And it would be pretty cool to see Mike Tyson knock this guy's head off. But I mean, have you seen Mike Tyson in some of these like pressers and stuff? It's like he can barely walk. I know that they've done a pretty good job on like the countdowns and stuff of like showing him hit pads, and it's like it looks like he's got a little bit of pop, but it's like I don't think there's very much mobility there. He's giving up a ton of size. Trust me, yeah.
I'll give you a last theory on that.
I want Jake Paul's head to get knocked off, but the realist in me says like Jake Paul continues to roll unless he thinks the money's in the rematch, and can't really break down fights that way.
Yeah, well, for Jake Paul to lose, and he realizes that, is if he beats Mike Tyson, everyone's going to say, "Well, he fought a 57-year-old man." Even though pre-fight, they're all saying the 57-year-old man will win. Once he beats him, they'll all recount that and be like, "Well, he fought an old man." Well, that's fair. So if he wins, it does nothing for him. If he loses, his career is essentially over. So it's a lose-lose. So I would have to think that he goes out there with some type of focus and attempts to go and take care of business. Last thing I want to say is that most of those clips that are surfacing online, that have been surfacing online, are from a training session that he had with Rafael Cordeiro 2 years ago. He goes in with Rafael Cordeiro, he murders the mitts, they splice it all up, they make it look really good, and then Mike Tyson goes on record in an interview afterwards being like, "I couldn't get out of bed for a week after that. Every muscle in my body was stretched. I hurt so bad. I'm making no comeback." He was not planning on coming back. People offer him millions of dollars to fight all the time. This one was just like, oh shit. Netflix is going to pick it up on Friday before the Jon Jones fight. It's going to be the most watched prize fight of all times. He's going to line his pockets more than anything he's probably ever made in his career to fight a YouTuber who was on the Disney Channel. So yeah, of course you're going to take it, but that doesn't make you suited to take it. Now all of a sudden they take these clips from 2 years ago when he was 55. They cut out the "I couldn't get out of bed for a week," and then they just resplice it and they share it. And that's how the internet works, is you see a sweet little 30-second clip of someone look good doing something, and it's like that clip may have been the one angle from God knows how much footage that they decide to actually keep. So again, it's just the media making it look one certain way, and these presser pieces and all that. But Mike Tyson has, at some points in his career, used a wheelchair due to a bad hip. He's used a walker due to a bad hip. And this fight got canceled because when he decided to get on a plane and it got a little too high up there, the elevation was a little too high, Paul Shaughnessy, He's got like a stomach ulcer that flares up. This is not a healthy individual. And people legitimately think that he just walks right through Jake Paul when credible power punchers like Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva and those guys couldn't do it. Those guys couldn't do it. So I'm not buying it. I'm really not. I hope I'm wrong simply because how sweet would that be?
It'd
Mike
be cool.
Tyson kills him. But yeah, you got to be real in these situations. You can't just lie to people and say, "Oh yeah, I think it's gonna happen." Like I got a reputation to put, and if I was to look at you in the eyes and say Mike Tyson's gonna beat this guy, to me it would feel really dirty, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I hope I'm wrong, but got a feeling that it might not be a great night for the old boy.
Yeah, it's age is always a factor. I just noticed, Cody, that you were wearing a cool bet hat. Took a while. Because like I'll throw up the picture right now. I mean, basically the view that I have. Yeah, I mean, it took while you were talking about that fight. Like I had no idea where'd you get that hat. Because like
yeah, well you need to take it
nobody
with Pat
sent
Mayo,
nobody
pal,
sent
that's
me
how
any swag.
Yeah, no, he sent me a thing and he was just like, hey, send me your address. I'm gonna send you some cool bet swag. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got a package in the mail. Open it up. T-shirts, hats. There's 2 different hats, but I definitely like this one, a little more of a retro throwback. And I'm good. So this morning I'm like, yeah, all right. Well, I'm doing the show today, so I'll grab my cool bet shirt, my cool bet hat. And even though I love cool bet, you know that. I personally, I can't double shill. I can't wear the hat and the t-shirt. Come on, I got morals at the end of the day. Go sign up for Cool Bet, great people, but it was either the hat or the shirt. So maybe next week I'll wear the cool shirt. Next week after that, different hat. But they definitely hooked it up. You should talk to Pat Mayo, see if maybe they'll send you over a swag pack as well. If not, I think some of those shirts were quite large. I could send one your way.
Probably takes a while for any sort of mail to get out here to the east coast of Canada. But yeah, promo code.
Pat sent it from out east here. It took like 3 days, and he actually sent some new lights because I know I teased on the show ways back that this set's all going, and it is. Like this house is finally getting sold, so I'm finally gonna tear it all down. But yeah, Pat sent me some lights, and they took like a day, and then the Cool Bet swag took like 2 days. Ooh. So mail in Canada, cross country. It's pretty quick, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, promo code DOGORPASS at coolbet.com. Get you a match up to $200 on your first deposit. Bet that thing 3 times over. So make $600 of bets, get your full $400, and you're free to go. Free to do whatever you want with it. In terms of rollover game, it's about as generous as it gets in the gambling streets. And trust me, I've been everywhere, man. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For Jared and Cody, I'm Paul, saying goodbye and good luck.